Chapter 687. Sovereign. All living beings were frightened. This kid is really audacious. He dares to talk about the sovereign in such a grand event? Is he tired of living? The creatures of the Longbow Divine Range were also frightened. They didn't want to be implicated. At this moment, God knows how many creatures were cursing Xueqi for courting death. Gu Hanyue was also frightened. Is this kid crazy? She said in a deep voice. Naturally, it can't be considered evil. Everything has its own rules. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. If we don't sacrifice some, how can there be hope for future generations to survive? Wrong. Xueqi shouted in a low voice, sonorous and forceful. He righteously said, "This is naturally evil. However, the evil of the Supreme Being is not purely good and evil. His evil is beyond what we mortals can imagine. Good and evil are all done by him. He created us for the sake of good, but in order to create the younger generation, he monopolized the evil and eliminated the former. This kind of breadth of mind is the reason why he became the Supreme Being. The strong can bear everything, and the sovereign bears everything in the Kunlun origin court. No matter what all living beings think, his evil is glorious and a great fortune. We can't deny his evil because this is denying his great fortune. There is good and evil. This is reality. How can there be absolute good and absolute evil in the world? The sovereign is like this, we are like this, and the Kunlun origin court is also like this. The sovereign bears the greatest pressure so that we can live with peace of mind. Although it is evil, it is also the greatest good." Gu Hanyue was stunned by what he said. After he finished speaking, she immediately reacted. This kid was too good at flattering, wasn't he? The entire Kunlun origin court fell into dead silence. All living beings felt that what he said made sense. They couldn't help but respect the sovereign. But when they came back to their senses and thought about it, something was wrong. This kid is flattering the sovereign. Isn't he too shameless? Xueqi stared at Gu Hanyue and said word by word, "You don't dare to point out the sovereign's evil. It can be seen that you are afraid of the sovereign. Why are you afraid? Could it be that in your heart, the sovereign's evil will harm you? Are you worthy of the boundless Kunlun's fortune? If there is no sovereign, how can there be a divine range? How can there be an environment where you can enjoy all the love? Are you worthy of the sovereign, worthy of your divine range?" Every word of his was like a knife, constantly stabbing Gu Hanyue's heart. Gu Hanyue's Dao heart instantly became unstable, giving the World Fool Sword an opportunity to strike. She immediately lost her mind. She felt that Xueqi was slandering her and wanted to kill her. Thinking that the entire divine range might die because of her, she got up in anger and slammed her palm toward Xueqi. "You're talking nonsense. His intentions are unforgivable." Then she disappeared. The Dao debate ended, and Xueqi had the last laugh. Boom! The Kunlun origin court was shaken. This result was too sudden. As Xueqi's tone changed, he instantly dug a pit for Gu Hanyue, forcing her to lose her composure and lose her composure. Needless to say, it was too exciting. The winner of this Dao debate is Longbow Divine Range's 12-star genius, Xueqi. The superstar divine official shouted loudly. His tone was impassioned and filled with the power to stir up emotions. The Longbow Divine Range almost exploded. Even the walls of the Great Dao could not block out the noise. The Kunlun universe reverberated with an earth-shaking commotion. Xueqi had shaken the entire Kunlun origin court. Even on the sacred platform, he could feel the Great Dao trembling. He heaved a long sigh of relief. "I really won. Congratulations to Xueqi for winning 200 million merit points and the opportunity to enter the Great Dao Tempering Pool for 7 days." The superstar divine official shouted loudly. Next, he landed in front of Xueqi and motioned for him to take out his ID card. Next, he transferred 200 million merit points to Xueqi and said, "After the superstar competition, you can go to the Great Dao Tempering Pool at any time. You can enter with your ID card." He looked at Xueqi with admiration in his eyes. He won the superstar competition with the cultivation of an early-stage Dao-treading saint. This guy is incredible. Xueqi bowed slightly before being sent out by the superstar divine official. Next was the competition of the next event. After returning to the vicinity of the superstar sacred steel, Zhou Xuanji immediately attracted the attention of all the geniuses. Even Ing Zhuge and Chu Machen were looking at him. He was calm and composed as he sat in meditation in the air, looking at the light screen calmly. Gu Hanyue walked over, biting her lip. Her eyes were filled with resentment as she said, "Zhou Xuanji, we are acquainted. As for whether we are enemies or friends, it depends on how fast you grow." Zhou Xuanji almost offended the sovereign. How could she act as if nothing had happened? "I will try my best to become stronger," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. He didn't have any malice toward Gu Hanyue. After all, how could he feel any sense of accomplishment when a man bickered with a woman? Gu Hanyue gave him a deep look before turning around and leaving. As the competition of another event began, the attention of the geniuses began to shift. Although Zhou Xuanji had won, he wasn't a strong cultivator in their eyes. In any case, Zhou Xuanji's name had already spread throughout the Kunlun origin court. Old Ancestor Longbo was very happy. He ordered the distribution of spiritual wine for the whole sect to celebrate. Zhou Xuanji's victory was worth bragging about for hundreds of millions of years. Just as Zhou Xuanji was cultivating, a man flew to his side. He opened his eyes and a strange look appeared on his face. Isn't this guy Ji Huanglin? Back in the Heaven Fiend realm, it was Ji Huanglin who brought him to the Heaven Fiend Star Island and gave him the Heavenly Law Jade. He then integrated the power of Heavenly Law into the Thunderclap Sword, upgrading it. At that time, Ji Huanglin dared to go against Buddha Yongling. He was extremely mysterious. Zhou Xuanji didn't expect him to be from the Kunlun origin court. Zhou Xuanji looked back at the superstar sacred steel. Sure enough, he saw Ji Huanglin's name. 16 star aptitude. When he first came here, he didn't see Ji Huanglin's name. After that, he didn't observe it carefully. He just roughly counted it. If Ji Huanglin hadn't appeared in front of him, he would have forgotten the name Ji Huanglin. He also didn't notice Ji Huanglin's appearance before. Ji Huanglin was wearing a silver-white robe, looking extremely noble. He looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated look in his eyes and said, "It seems that the Heavenly Law Jade didn't choose you by chance." Zhou Xuanji still felt a little guilty facing him. After all, he had stolen the Heavenly Law Jade and made Ji Huanglin busy for nothing. Zhou Xuanji sized Ji Huanglin up and found that Ji Huanglin's aura was even more unfathomable than before. He was taller, and his face was colder. As though he saw through Zhou Xuanji's doubts, Ji Huanglin said calmly, "The one in the Heaven Fiend realm was just a clone of mine. I communicated with you through my original will. If not for that, you might have been killed by my clone." Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, "Then should I thank you for not killing me?" Ji Huanglin snorted coldly. "Remember, you still owe me a favor. My Heavenly Law Jade was absorbed by you. I let you take advantage of me back then." On the Heaven Fiend Star Island, he helped Zhou Xuanji obtain countless natural treasures for his cultivation. "Yo, Brother Ji, are you familiar with this brat?" Chu Machen flew over suddenly and asked with a mocking smile. The two super geniuses' approach drew Zhou Xuanji's attention again. Chapter 688. I'm not really familiar with him. I've met him in the lower realms before, and that brat even tricked me. Ji Huanglin looked back at Chu Machen and shook his head with a smile. His tone was thought-provoking. Chu Machen mocked, "Yo, you even sent your clone to the lower realm. You're still thinking about that illusory dream of being the Heavenly Law Lord?" Heavenly Law Lord? Zhou Xuanji immediately understood Ji Huanglin's intention. No wonder this guy wanted the Heavenly Law Jade. He wanted to control all the heavenly laws. But why would Ji Huanglin need the heavenly law with his cultivation? Brat, not bad. Continue to work hard. When you reach the Dao ancestor level, I will bring you along. Chu Machen looked down at Zhou Xuanji and said with a smile. Zhou Xuanji was not angry because he had the right to be so arrogant. Soon, Ji Huanglin and Chu Machen left. In their eyes, Zhou Xuanji was not a threat. He was not even qualified to speak to them on equal footing. Even so, Zhou Xuanji received many envious gazes. The superstar competition continued. The Kunlun origin court was still bustling. As the competitions passed, everyone forgot about the excitement brought by Zhou Xuanji. The Dao debate was not a real Dao debate. It was more for entertainment. So, the prize for the champion was obviously lower than the other competitions. Time continued to pass. In the blink of an eye, the learning competition was here. Zhou Xuanji was sent to the sacred platform by the hundreds of fierce lightning sovereign. Everyone present was a genius. Naturally, they were confident in their ability to learn. The learning competition tested not only one's talent and bloodline, but also one's comprehension. A total of 489 geniuses stood on the platform. Even the third-rank 16-star genius, Meng Shen, and the fourth-rank 16-star genius, Chong Sheng Xiao, were there. 16 out of the top 50 on the Superstar Sacred Steel participated. All of them were high-spirited and looking forward to the competition. The Superstar Divine Official waved his right hand. Orbs of light floated in the air and lined up in rows. The lower they went, the more orbs there were. The geniuses could tell what energy techniques were hidden in them with their divine sense. There are 9 divine energy techniques in total. First God is the lowest and ninth God is the highest. After learning it, demonstrate it once. Do not hurt other geniuses. Except for first God's divine ability, the time for other divine abilities will be shortened. Also, each participant can only choose one divine ability. The time starts now. The Superstar Divine Official did not waste any time and directly gave the order. Most of the prodigies began to attack, and this scene once again stirred up everyone's blood. Zhou Xuanji had won first place in one of the events after all, and he was a dark horse at that, so he attracted the attention of countless creatures. In terms of learning ability, this kid shouldn't be too bad. The old beggar stroked his long beard and smiled, but he did not reveal Zhou Xuanji's ranking. After all, the other geniuses had even more terrifying talent. Yun Zhongxiu nodded and said, "He's already won the first place in one of the events. Even if he doesn't participate in the other events, it's enough." Speaking to there, she could not help but look at Zhou Xuanji again, as if she was looking at a legend. She bought Zhou Xuanji from the black market, but she did not expect Zhou Xuanji to have such achievements. It was simply too amazing. On the other hand, Xian Xianghua felt quite expectant. She remembered that Zhou Xuanji's talent in learning sword techniques was simply terrifying. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuanji locked onto the 9-god divine ability. There were a total of 12 9-god divine abilities, and only one of them was a sword Dao divine ability. Ultimate Chaos Dao. Upon mastery, one could use boundless sword qi to disrupt and even destroy the 3,000 great Daos. He probed it with his spiritual will and quickly obtained the cultivation method of the ultimate Chaos Dao. Fortunately, this divine ability had sword moves as well. Sword Dao divine abilities could not be separated from the sword after all, especially those ridiculously powerful divine abilities, which were mostly performed with sword moves. Of course, divine abilities like Sword Sect Immortal Ghost Weep and the Sword Fusion technique did not require sword moves. All one had to do was to understand their intricacies. Zhou Xuanji took out the World Fool Sword and began practicing within a radius of 30 meters. This attracted the attention of the other geniuses. Is this brat stupid? Can divine abilities be cultivated like this? Ignore him. He's just playing to the gallery. Tisk tiske. A mere 12-star dares to choose a 9-god divine ability. This competition is not about whose divine ability is of a higher level, but who can learn the divine ability more efficiently. The faster one learns a divine ability, the better one can win. Hurry up. Meng Shen and Chong Sheng Xiao are already meditating. The geniuses discussed among themselves, while Zhou Xuanji entered a state of forgetfulness. The living beings in the outside world also felt that Zhou Xuanji was playing to the gallery. This brat is really shameless. Zhou Xuanji practiced his sword moves while comprehending the qi circulation technique. Divine abilities were about understanding. After each divine ability was mastered, one could use it at will. But before that, one had to practice the technique over and over again to fully understand it. Zhou Xuanji's sword moved extremely quickly. He only spent the time of half an incense stick to practice the ultimate Chaos Dao once. By the second time, his speed had already increased. 10 times. 50 times. 100 times. Zhou Xuanji's sword moved even faster. His sword qi filled the 30 meters radius, which was so powerful that the other geniuses could not help but look at him. Especially the geniuses who were closest to him. They felt frustrated and felt that something was missing. It was difficult for them to get into the zone. The World Fool Sword was working. At this moment, someone had already learned a divine ability. He performed it toward the void outside the sacred platform and stood out. The superstar divine official brought him to his side through the air. The geniuses who chose a divine ability fell into despair immediately. If they could not beat the others with divine abilities of the same level, they had no chance of winning. But for divine abilities of a higher level, they could make use of the time difference. Xueqi seemed to be stimulated too. His sword moved faster and faster. He moved back and forth in the 30 meters radius. Although he was fast, his movements were not messy. He was domineering and elegant. Gradually, those who mocked Xueqi began to see him differently. This brat is really going to master it? His sword technique is quite good. It seems like this brat is quite accomplished in the sword's way. You can learn a divine ability in the sword's way like this? This isn't a sword technique. TSK. Is he going to be a dark horse again? This is going to be interesting. All the divine ranges and origin cities began to discuss Xueqi. Compared to the other geniuses who were meditating, he looked so outstanding. Most importantly, everyone could clearly see that the speed at which he swung his sword was increasing. After 200 times, Xueqi's sword speed reached a new height. At first glance, there seemed to be countless afterimages, and no one could see him clearly. 250 times. 300 times. 350 times. While Xueqi was focused on training his sword, other geniuses learned low-grade divine abilities one after another. Meng Shen and Chong Xiao entered a state of enlightenment and were not disturbed by the outside world. A great Tao vortex appeared around them, and their auras were sharp. A while later, Xueqi practiced the ultimate Chaos Tao's basic sword moves for the 400th time. Boom! A violent great Tao gathered toward him. Along with his sword Qi, the space around him rippled visibly. That brat! Ji Huanglin looked up at the light screen and narrowed his eyes. A tinge of disbelief flashed across his eyes. Chapter 689. Ultimate Chaos Tao. Chaos Tao. Xueqi mumbled to himself, but his body did not stop. At this moment, he became one with the World Fool Sword. He was the sword and the sword was him. He could sense the great Tao around him, and so could the World Fool Sword. His sword moved with extreme speed. Toward the end, he repeated it almost every second. The 458th time. The 459th time. The 460th time. Fast as the wind and powerful as a dragon. At this moment, countless people focused their attention on Xueqi, especially the longbow divine range. No one dared to breathe too loudly. They could sense that Xueqi was about to succeed. They could sense his boldness even through the screen of light. The surrounding geniuses dodged in fear, fearing that they might be injured by him. At the same time, the sound of his sword was too loud, and the chaotic great Tao was twisting around. The superstar divine official stared at Xueqi with an odd expression. In the Tao debate, it could be said that this brat was lucky and eloquent. But this was a competition of learning. It was a competition of true talent. A 12-star could overpower a 16-star? What a joke! The geniuses levitating in the air looked over with their eyes wide open. How can it be? He's going to succeed. That's a 9-god grade divine ability. How can he cultivate it like that? Stop bullshit. Ting. Even Meng Shen and Chong Xiao have not succeeded. Who is this brat? The geniuses discussed among themselves in shock. They could not remain calm. The competition of learning was very important to them after all. It concerned their serendipity. It was fine if they lost to a 16-star genius, but if they lost to a 12-star genius, they did not dare to imagine how the divine range cultivators would criticize and mock them. The 489th time. The 490th time. The 491st time. The 500th time. Xueqi stopped abruptly and flew up. He levitated hundreds of meters in the air and placed his sword in front of him. He opened his eyes and held the sword in his right hand. With a twist of his wrist, he swung his sword toward the void outside the sacred arena. In an instant, countless sword Qi crisscrossed in the void, causing the universe to collapse. All sorts of great Daros turned into colorful air currents that intertwined. A violent gale blew and shook the sacred platform. The scene was extremely shocking. The prodigies who were still in the midst of enlightenment were startled awake. Everyone opened their eyes and immediately saw Xueqi's figure. He placed his left hand behind his waist and raised his sword with his right hand, pointing it diagonally at the void. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and the demeanor of the Sword Emperor was as beautiful as a painting. The explosion in the void served as a foil to his calm demeanor. This sword strike was very relaxed. The universe seemed to be very fragile. At this moment, countless living beings were stunned by his figure. Such a handsome sword Xiao. Meng Shen and Chong Sheng Xiao could not help but widen their eyes in shock. This is Ultimate Chaos Dao? They had an inexplicably surreal feeling. The Ultimate Chaos Path was a top-notch Sword Dao divine ability in the Kunlun Origin Court, and its creator was at the pinnacle of the Sword Dao in the Kunlun Origin Court. The superstar divine official waved his right hand and pulled Xueqi to his side. Xueqi was expressionless. He spun the hilt with his right hand and sheathed the World Fool's sword into the scabbard at his waist. From the beginning to the end, he did not reveal an expression of ecstasy, not even a trace of a smile. It was as if learning the ultimate Chaos Dao was not a difficult task for him. It was indeed not a difficult task. How long did he take? The superstar divine official's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He looked at Xueqi as though he was looking at a monster. The surrounding geniuses looked at him the same way. Xueqi ignored them but felt a little proud in his heart. Fortunately, he had a divine ability in the Sword Dao, or else he would only be a minor character. But this was normal. Even in the Kunlun Origin Court, how many cultivators did not have a sword? The sacred platform was silent. All the geniuses looked at Xueqi, stunned. They calculated the time in their hearts, and their hearts sank. Why did it turn out like this? Meng Shen mumbled to himself with a dazed expression. To him, if he could not get first place, it was meaningless to learn a powerful divine ability. Chong Sheng Xiao, on the other hand, quickly entered his cultivation mode. Even if he could not get first place, he would fight for second place. The other geniuses came back to their senses and entered their cultivation mode one after another. The outside world was in an uproar. Xueqi staged another Dark Horse's counterattack. Although the Dao debate could not prove anything, who would dare to doubt him this time? Some living beings said that Xueqi might have learned it in advance, but they were immediately refuted by the surrounding living beings. How could a Dao-treading saint learn the ultimate Chaos Dao? The divine abilities chosen in the superstar competition were all exclusive techniques. They had to guarantee that they would not be leaked after the competition. Too powerful. Too powerful. Too powerful. Qiu slammed the table and stood up in excitement. Si Mengyan, who had always been calm, was also trembling in excitement. The old beggar burst into laughter. Ha ha! This is my disciple. Gu Tianxia and Su Qing also looked at the light screen in the sky in a daze. They could not come back to their senses for a long time. Xian Xianghua did not utter a word. Instead, she gave them a knowing look. They could already hear the cheers of the entire Longbow divine range. Xueqi. So powerful. Our Longbow divine range is going to rise. He's only a 12-star genius? I think he's at least 16-star. He surpassed two 16-star geniuses in the competition of learning? That's unbelievable. Ha 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 ha, we picked up a treasure. The Yu clan's contribution cannot go unnoticed. They were able to find such a genius from the black market. Emperor Red Dragon stared blankly at the light screen in the sky. Her ears were filled with deafening cheers. The creatures of this divine range only felt that it was a drama and was amazed. But her feelings were extremely complicated. If she had brought Xueqi back personally, wouldn't they be able to use such a genius? The more she thought about it, the more regretful she felt. It was as though she had lost her soul. Meanwhile, old Ancestorine Sheen, who was far away in another divine range, fainted out of fear. While everyone was shocked by Xueqi again, he meditated behind the superstar divine official and cultivated quietly. The other geniuses could not help but admire him for his calmness. Although this kid's cultivation was low, his temperament and talent were really powerful. In time, he might become someone like Ing Zhuge. Time ticked by. After the superstar divine official confirmed the top three, the competition ended. Unlike other competitions, it was very easy to distinguish the top three in this competition. The winner of this competition is Longbow Divine Range's 12-star genius, Xueqi. After the superstar divine official took back all the divine ability orbs, he shouted loudly. His voice resounded throughout the entire superstar competition. Congratulations, Xueqi. He has won 1 billion merit points and the serendipity of the Great Tao Tempering Pool for a month. Xueqi opened his eyes wide. This was the learning competition indeed. The reward was almost 5 times that of the Tao debate. Before the superstar divine official could speak, he took out his identity medallion. The superstar divine official took the medallion and sighed in his heart. Is this kid really just a Tao-treading saint? Could he be the reincarnation of some ancient god? Meng Shen and Chong Shangxiao were not in the top 3 because of their mental imbalance. The second and third place were both geniuses who chose a divine ability. How ironic. There was a mistake in publishing the previous chapter. Don't worry, I won't make you spend too much money. I will revise the chapter and publish it directly. Chapter 690. Returning to the superstar sacred steel, Xueqi once again enjoyed everyone's attention. On this day, the heavens' favorites looked at him with awe. Even Ing Zhuge looked at him curiously. Ji Huanglin's eyes became complicated. If he had killed Xueqi back then, wouldn't he have killed a super genius? Most importantly, he could have easily killed Xueqi back then, but he did not do so because of various reasons. Perhaps this was God's will. Some people were destined to soar into the sky with an unstoppable momentum. From today onwards, the Kunlun Origin Court has another Xueqi. Tiske, is he really a 12-star genius? Don't tell me that the high-level examiner made a mistake? That's possible. With such learning ability, he's at least 15 stars. Could he be the reincarnation of some almighty figure? Think about which sword path almighty figures have recently reincarnated. Now that I think about it, it's been a long time since a peerless swordmaster has appeared. The geniuses discussed among themselves, while Xueqi began cultivating as usual. Now that he had won 2 billion merit points, it was like he had suddenly become rich. He could greatly modify the world in the Lotus and help Emperor Sword Court develop quickly. The more he thought about it, the happier he felt. At the same time, he was very interested in the Great Tao Tempering Pool. It was said that this thing could make the Great Tao soar and even change one's mortal body. But no one knew whether it was true or not. The next competition had already begun, but the shock that Xueqi brought to everyone was not forgotten as quickly as before. The top 1,000 divine ranges all had their eyes on Xueqi. The reason was simple. To them, the longbow divine range did not deserve to have Xueqi. This kind of prodigy should need a stronger environment. Time ticked by. Xueqi would occasionally open his eyes to watch the superstar competition, but he was more looking forward to the Great Tao Talent competition. He could not wait to end the superstar competition and continue to grow stronger. He loved the feeling of becoming stronger. The faster the better. Half a year later, there was a loud bang. Suddenly, Xueqi felt the heavens and earth shake violently. He opened his eyes and saw a blood-red crack in the dusky sky. Everyone be careful. Enemy attack. Fierce Thunder Sovereign shouted in a deep voice, startling all the geniuses and causing them to turn around. Xueqi had a strange look on his face. There were still people who dared to attack the superstar competition? Tired of living? The other prodigies had the same expression on their faces. They were all in disbelief. The superstar competition was created by a sovereign. Interfering with the superstar competition was equivalent to offending a sovereign. It was definitely courting death. A gigantic hand stretched out from the blood-colored hole. The palm was like a blade, slashing horizontally and vertically, widening the blood-colored hole. This scene caused all the geniuses to feel a chill in their hearts. It was because this hand was too large, like a divine vein. Even though they were separated by several tens of thousands of li, they still felt as if they were looking up at a great mountain. Why is he here? The fierce Thunder Sovereign squinted his eyes and mumbled to himself. His eyes were filled with fear. He immediately cast a spell to send a signal. The superstar competition had been held many times, and there had been instances of enemy attacks throughout history. Even though Supremes were lofty existences, there were still some existences that were too powerful for Supremes to kill for various reasons. Very soon, a huge face appeared in the bloody hole. The face was old and cold, and could even be said to be ferocious. Withered hair fell on his forehead, and his eyes were bloodshot like lightning. So many delicacies. His voice was hoarse and full of killing intent. Boom! The dim sky in front of him suddenly shattered. Endless cold wind blew, and a figure as burly as a giant god appeared. He was bare-chested and wearing pitch-black shorts. His calves were entangled with many vines. His bare feet were huge, completely out of proportion with his calves. The muscles on his upper body were extremely impactful. After taking a step forward, he bent over and walked into this independent universe. All the geniuses were shocked, because this guy was carrying a mountain that was even bigger than him on his right shoulder. No one knew how many tens of thousands of meters tall it was. Looking closely, one could see that the mountain wall was bare, trapping countless souls and creatures. The lower half of those creatures and souls were stuck in the mud. Their faces were full of fear and resentment. Their bodies were twisting and struggling non-stop. The strangest thing was that no sound came out. Even Ing Zhuge, Chu Machen, and Ji Huanglin couldn't help but frown. Old demon soul mover. Someone cried out in shock. His tone was full of fear. All the geniuses were frightened. Zhou Xuanji, on the other hand, looked puzzled. What's the origin of Old Demon Soul Mover? Fierce Thunder Sovereign flew to the front and faced Old Demon Soul Mover alone. He said coldly, "Old Demon Soul Mover, you are here to interfere with the superstar competition again. Do you really think that the Sovereign won't kill you?" Old Demon Soul Mover raised the corner of his mouth and sneered, "This time, I will eat you too." After that, he raised his left hand and grabbed at Fierce Thunder Sovereign. Fierce Thunder Sovereign raised his arms, and countless lightning bolts burst out, turning into a lightning net that covered the void and pounced toward Old Demon Soul Mover. Old Demon Soul Mover was completely unaffected. His left hand suddenly sped up and slapped Fierce Thunder Sovereign away. Boom! Fierce Thunder Sovereign smashed into the ground, causing the ground to collapse. No one knew if he was dead or alive. All the geniuses opened their eyes wide, including Zhou Xuanji. What's going on? Fierce Thunder Sovereign is so weak? No. It's because Old Demon Soul Mover moved too fast. No one could clearly see the slap just now. Old Demon Soul Mover opened his mouth and inhaled deeply. The earth shook, and the mountains in the distance shattered directly, turning into a dust storm that gushed into his mouth, including the sea of clouds in the sky. All the geniuses backed away from Old Demon Soul Mover. Even so, the violent suction force made them feel uncomfortable. Zhou Xuanji immediately activated the Sword Fusion Technique and Nine Soul Fusion Technique. His condition improved tremendously, but even so, he could not retreat. This suction force was too powerful. What cultivation stage is he at? Zhou Xuanji's heart shuddered. Just a breath was already so powerful. It was hard to imagine what kind of force Fierce Thunder Sovereign was enduring. Looking in the direction of his gaze, Old Demon Soul Mover was so gigantic that it was as though he was going to swallow the entire world. The giant mountain on his shoulder was like a place where evil and resentment gathered. Countless vengeful souls swayed and danced wildly. At this moment, a golden ray of light descended from the sky. A man radiating with a golden radiance pierced toward Old Demon Soul Mover with a long spear. The golden flames transformed into a long pillar that occupied the entire world. It crashed into Old Demon Soul Mover and forcefully pushed him back. Origin Court War God. You dog. You are here again. Old Demon Soul Mover roared madly, deafening Zhou Xuanji and making him dizzy. Origin Court War God, who was shrouded in golden radiance, remained silent. He swung his spear domineeringly, causing Old Demon Soul Mover to disappear into the darkness. Next, Origin Court War God chased after him and disappeared into the dark void. The world fell silent. The giant hole in the distance was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. The geniuses looked at each other. They could see the fear and shock in each other's eyes. Old Demon Soul Mover was terrified. Origin Court War God was shocked. Boom! Fierce Thunder Sovereign broke out of the ground and flew toward the superstar Sacred Steel. Everyone's expression turned weird. Because Fierce Thunder Sovereign's head was twisted by the slap. His face was facing the back, which looked very weird. Chapter 691. Fierce Thunder Sovereign grabbed his chin with his right hand. With a cracking sound, he turned his head around. From the beginning to the end, his expression was very calm, without the slightest hint of pain. He glanced at all the geniuses and calmly said, "Okay, with the Origin Court War God taking action, that old demon won't be able to cause any trouble. Let's continue watching the superstar competition." He waved his right hand, and a light screen appeared in the sky again. The sacred arena was still in progress, so it was not affected. The geniuses regained their composure, but it was still difficult for them to calm down. The figures of Old Demon Soul Mover and Origin Court War God could not be dispelled from their minds. Xueqi was the same. He was very curious about the realm of Old Demon Soul Mover and Origin Court War God. They felt that the geniuses of the 9 vast heavens were so insignificant in front of them that they didn't dare to make a move. The path of cultivation is really long. Xueqi sighed in his heart. He looked forward to the end of the superstar competition even more. After this, he would go into seclusion for a period of time. Then, he would begin to accept missions from the Void Boundary War God frequently. He was prepared to rely on battle to become stronger. If it was possible. In the future, he would create his own divine range and help Emperor Sword Court take root. As for the Longbow Divine Range, they would support each other in the future. Yu Xinzhong had mentioned this a long time ago because it was impossible for Xueqi to stay in the Longbow Divine Range forever. After all, who was willing to bow down to the weak? With Xueqi's talent, he would surpass the Longbow Divine Range sooner or later. In the Kunlun Origin Court, divine ranges could also support each other. Otherwise, the weaker divine ranges would inevitably be eliminated. Xueqi began thinking about his future plans. He passed the projects one by one. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. The enthusiasm of the Kunlun Origin Court didn't diminish, and the great eliminations continued. After those who had experienced life and death came out, they relied on the atmosphere of the superstar competition to vent their emotions. He was getting closer and closer to the Great Tao Aptitude Competition. Xueqi did not have much hope for this project. After all, his Tao had just been born, and the reason why those geniuses were so talented was related to their Tao. Xueqi heard from the geniuses around him that the top geniuses were almost all reincarnations of powerful cultivators. Their great Taos were nurtured even before they were reincarnated. Their talent was unimaginable. The reason for this was because the powerhouses had reached a bottleneck and had no choice but to recultivate. The further he progressed, the narrower his innate talent would become. Of course, there were exceptions. There would always be some prodigies who would shock the world the first time they were born. However, no such genius had appeared in this superstar competition. It had happened before, and the commotion it caused was far greater than the shock Xueqi brought. Since he had nothing to do, Xueqi began communicating with the Sword Spirit. Sword Spirit, where is Hongmeng from? The Sword Spirit isn't sure either. Then what do you know? The Sword Spirit only knows that the stronger the Swordmaster is, the stronger the system will be. The two will support each other without end. The Sword Spirit's words made Xueqi feel quite comfortable. He hoped that there was no limit between himself and the system. Otherwise, he would be reincarnated like those great cultivators. How uncomfortable would that be? It was no wonder that those super prodigies were so arrogant or apathetic. He was like a high-level big shot that had come to a beginner's village to open a new account. It was difficult for him to have a normal attitude. Time continued to pass. The Great Tao Aptitude Competition had finally arrived. Xueqi landed on the sacred arena again. This time, he enjoyed a great deal of attention. Out of everyone here, there weren't many Heaven's favorites like him who won first place twice. There were less than 10 of them. The most important thing was that his cultivation was at the bottom of the superstar competition, which made him even more dramatic and eye-catching. How many places can he get this time? I'm scared of losing. I will bet on first place this time. Crazy, Ing Zhuge and Chu Machen are also participating. How can he get first place? Too strong. There will be a good show to watch this time. Ing Zhuge, I really want to see his performance in the competition of strength. Xueqi is doomed this time. Don't talk nonsense. The atmosphere of each divine range had reached an unprecedented level of excitement. The Longbow Divine Range, on the other hand, was very calm because Xueqi had already won first place in 2 events. No matter how he performed this time, they would accept it. Xueqi looked around and found that there were more than 400 geniuses in the Great Tao Talent Competition. 6 of the top 10 on the Superstar Sacred Steel were participating. They were Ying Chu Machan, Meng Shen, Dabi Momo, Rulai Fu, and Wu Ya. Ji Huanglin and Gu Hanyue, whom Zhou Xuanji had met before, were also present. It could be said that it was a gathering of stars and a showdown between the strong. The rules of the Great Dao Talent Competition are group battles. Whoever can last until the end will be the champion. All great Daos will be reduced to the early stage of the Dao-treading Venerable Realm. You are not allowed to leave the sacred platform, nor are you allowed to attack the participants themselves. Once your great Dao leaves your body, you are not allowed to enter it again. Those who violate the rules will be eliminated immediately. The Superstar Divine official said loftily. Then, a light screen rose from the edge of the sacred platform, isolating the sacred platform from the void. Zhou Xuanji immediately sensed many malicious gazes. If a dark horse like him continued to win, it would be an insult to the other Heaven's favorites. Therefore, he became the first target of many Heaven's favorites. Zhou Xuanji sighed and released his sword Wei. The most difficult part of this competition was not to accidentally injure the geniuses during the battle. Otherwise, they would be directly eliminated. Zhou Xuanji revolved his great Dao at high speed around himself, and the expressions of the geniuses who were preparing to attack immediately turned grim. Shameless. At the same time, Ying and Chu Machan's great Daos directly collided. The sacred platform had some kind of special restriction that made everyone's great Daos show their colors. Ying great Dao was blue, holy and domineering. Chu Machan's great Dao was fiery, like a fire dragon, ferocious and mighty. The two great Daos fought fiercely, forcing the surrounding geniuses to retreat with their great Daos. Gu Hanyue suddenly walked up to Zhou Xuanji with an evil smile on her face. Zhou Xuanji shot a glance at her and immediately understood what this woman wanted to do. He didn't panic. He still let his great Dao revolve around him at high speed. Come and hit me if you dare. If you can't kill me, you will be the one who loses. The other Heaven's favorites couldn't care less about him. They all started attacking the great Daos of others. Most of the Heaven's favorites were proud and arrogant. They would rather lose with a bang than win with no face left. But Zhou Xuanji didn't care. After all, he was an outsider. He didn't have many acquaintances in the Kunlun Origin Court. You still want to hide? Are you still a man? Gu Hanyue said with a cold snort. Her great Dao was like a crescent moon, slashing toward Zhou Xuanji's sword Wei. Zhou Xuanji's sword Wei was in the form of a silver sword. Facing the menacing great Dao, it suddenly flew up and fell toward Gu Hanyue's great Dao. This move was quite similar to the heavenly sword falling. Gu Hanyue smiled disdainfully as she manipulated her great Dao to collide with Zhou Xuanji's sword Wei. Bum! A gust of wind blew, fluttering the robes of the two. Their great Daos also began to fight fiercely. Chapter 692. At first, Gu Hanyue despised Zhou Xuanji. But she didn't expect Zhou Xuanji's sword Dao to be so tenacious. She couldn't defeat him easily. It seems that he really has more than a 12-star aptitude. Gu Hanyue narrowed her eyes as a ripple appeared in her heart. Zhou Xuanji raised the corner of his mouth and said with a smile, Fairy, what's the benefit of eliminating me? Can one person get into the top 3? Only the top 3 would get a reward. Gu Hanyue said disdainfully, I didn't want to be in the top 3. I will vent my anger first. What top 3? This kid is crazy. Don't you see how many 16-star and 17-star geniuses are participating? You have to dare to think about anything. Just like the first 2 times I won, if I don't dare to think about it, how can I get it? Let's not be delusional. You get second, I get third. As for Ying and Chu Machan, look at their fighting posture. How can they coexist? Zhou Xuanji said seriously. As he spoke, he deliberately pulled out the World Fool sword and pointed it at the sky to show his determination. Gu Hanyue suddenly felt that it made sense. If I can get into the top 3 in the Great Dao aptitude. She was immediately tempted but still hesitated. How do I know that he won't plot against me? Zhou Xuanji shook his head and said, A man can't stand without trust. If I were such a villain, how could I have come this far? Gu Hanyue was moved. Putting aside the Dao debate, Zhou Xuanji really didn't show any bad character. Okay. Let's join hands. Gu Hanyue agreed. She regretted it as soon as she said it. Why am I so easily convinced? Is it because I want to get into the top 3? So far, she had never gotten into the top 3 in the first 2 events she participated in. Zhou Xuanji separated his sword Dao from Gu Hanyue's great Dao and said, "Let's see if there are people who make us unhappy. We will eliminate them one by one and slowly develop. Let those super geniuses continue to fight. We will wait for an opportunity." Gu Hanyue nodded before taking Zhou Xuanji to find trouble with those enemies. Although Zhou Xuanji's sword Dao wasn't very strong, it was created by himself after all. It was perfectly compatible with him. Together with Gu Hanyue's great Dao, 2 against 1 was no problem. The great Daos were destroyed by them one after another. Those geniuses looked at Zhou Xuanji and Gu Hanyue with hatred but didn't dare to say anything. A loss was a loss. How could he lose his grace? After the battle, Gu Hanyue's impression of Zhou Xuanji changed. "You're quite smart." Gu Hanyue glanced at him and snorted with a smile. Zhou Xuanji smiled but did not reply. When this scene fell into the eyes of the people in the outside world, it caused a huge shock. Is this kid going to be a dark horse again? Gu Hanyue is so silly. Be careful not to be deceived by that kid. What's their relationship? Isn't Gu Hanyue an icy beauty? She actually joined hands with Zhou Xuanji. Damn it! It looks like he's going to enter the top 3. Why is it like this? I don't believe that he can still enter the top 3. The Longbow Divine Range was in an uproar. Seeing Zhou Xuanji and Gu Hanyue teaming up, they were suddenly looking forward to it. Could it be that Zhou Xuanji was going to counterattack again? This was a competition of great Dao aptitude. In the Yu family. The old beggar laughed heartily. This brat's ability to pick up women is truly inherited from me. Su Qing and Gu Tianxia rolled their eyes at him. They were too lazy to refute him. Qiu Hu winked at Xian Xianghua and asked, "Realm Lord Xian, are you angry?" Xian Xianghua tilted her head with a smile and replied, "This shows that my little husband is charming. Why should I be angry? I wonder if I have such a blessing?" Qiu Hu choked. He quickly snorted and said, "Of course." Unfortunately, no one believed him. Young Master Zhou is extremely talented and charming. He will naturally attract talented women, Yu Zhongxiu said with a smile. But her smile was a little bitter. Fortunately, it was covered by a veil. Everyone continued to pay attention to the Great Dao Aptitude competition. One had to admit that Gu Hanyue was indeed very strong. She controlled her Great Dao to cast all kinds of divine abilities. Zhou Xuanji's sword Dao was responsible for supporting her. The 2 defeated many geniuses one after another. This made other geniuses begin to imitate them. Only Ying Zhuge and Chu Mochen were still fighting one-on-one. Ji Huanglin looked for Zhou Xuanji and said, "Let's join forces." Zhou Xuanji narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Okay." It seemed that Ji Huanglin's ambition was not small. He wanted to be first. With Ji Huanglin's ability, there was still hope for him to win the top 3. Gu Hanyue furrowed her brow and asked through voice transmission, "If he joins us, I will only be 3rd. Zhou Xuanji replied, "That's not necessarily true. What if he is first? Don't worry, I never buy or sell at a loss." Seeing that he was so confident, Gu Hanyue could only give up. The pace of the Great Dao Talent competition was very fast. In less than half a day, 200 geniuses had escaped. Some of them did so because their Great Dao came into contact with other geniuses. The Great Dao of the Dao Treading Saint Realm could hardly cause harm to other geniuses. But due to the rules, they lost. Wu Ye suddenly brought one of his little brothers to Zhou Xuanji. "Brother Ji, come and cooperate with us. Let me eliminate this kid first," Wu Ye said with a smile. In the Dao debate, he was eliminated by Zhou Xuanji in the first round. It was really shameful. He had to get back at Zhou Xuanji. Ji Huanglin, expressionless, said, "Words are useless. Let's fight." Having said this, his Great Dao took the lead. Zhou Xuanji, on the other hand, controlled his sword Dao to cast the Ancestor Dragon Sword, transforming into a 5-clawed silver dragon. Gu Hanyue didn't delay either. The 3 of them fought Wu Ya and Zhou Xuanji together. Wu Ya didn't expect Ji Huanglin to be so decisive. He had no time to retreat and could only fight. In the end, under Ji Huanglin's strong leadership, Wu Ya and Zhou Xuanji were eliminated. In the process of flying to the superstar divine official, they were drooling with regret and resentment. Well, they were cursing. Very easy, Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. Then, he gave Ji Huanglin a look, asking him to look at Ing Zhuge and Chu Machen. The battle between the two 17-star geniuses was still inextricably tied. Their momentum was very strong, but it was a little weaker than at the beginning. If this continued, it would be very beneficial for Ji Huanglin. Ji Huanglin transmitted his voice to him and asked, "What is your goal?" Zhou Xuanji replied, "Third, I have already won first place twice. I don't need another one." This sentence was true. It was too difficult to get first place again. Of course, if everyone was eliminated, leaving only a dying guy waiting for him, he wouldn't mind creating a historical record. He would be the first genius under the age of 1,000 to win first place 3 times in a row in the superstar competition. Just the thought of it was beautiful. After getting Zhou Xuanji's answer, Ji Huanglin seemed to feel more at ease. He took the initiative to walk toward the other geniuses. The three continued to fight. During this period, Zhou Xuanji was paying attention to the situation of the entire Saint competition. He specifically picked the geniuses with intermediate strength to fight. He kept the weak ones as if they were pigs. As for the geniuses who were too strong, he would let them exhaust each other and deal with them later. Chapter 693. Time passed bit by bit. Zhou Xuanji, Ji Huanglin, and Gu Hanyue seemed very relaxed. With the three of them working together, they were not tired at all. This also led to an increase in the number of small teams, with the largest group consisting of 6 geniuses. They belonged to the weaker group, so they weren't a threat for the time being. The stronger the prodigy, the more they didn't want to stick together. Ji Huanglin was an exception. He was too big a target, and even if he won with Zhou Xuanji and Gu Hanyue, no one would say anything. Because in the eyes of everyone, he was carrying 2 burdens. Another half a day passed. There were only 71 prodigies left in the sacred arena. Other than Zhou Xuanji, the rest of the geniuses had at least 14-star aptitude. Zhou Xuanji was very unusual among them. The battle continued. Ing Zhuge and Chu Machen were still fighting to the death. These two fellows didn't seem to care about the outcome of the competition of Great Dao aptitude, and they only wanted to defeat each other. After all, they were the only ones with 17-star aptitude, and the divine ranges they came from were ranked extremely high, so the rewards were not important to them at all. They just wanted to prove themselves. As the number of sky prides on the sacred arena decreased, the atmosphere outside became livelier. This was the second to last competition. Looking at those spectacular and mystical Great Dao mystiques, putting aside the stakes, it was also very enjoyable to watch. This kid hasn't been eliminated yet. Ha ha ha. I feel like I'm going to make a killing. The brother who bet on Zhou Xuanji, do you want to drink with us later? Is there any justice in this world? A Dao-treading venerable won 3 rounds in a row? What is Ji Huanglin thinking? I have a feeling. Ji Huanglin and Gu Hanyue are going to be tricked by this kid. Everyone cried out in shock. Seeing Zhou Xuanji walking on the sacred arena so casually, they all felt that it was unreal. That's ridiculous. Didn't this kid come from the Longbow Divine range? How could he befriend 2 super geniuses? Also, could Ji Huanglin and Gu Hanyue have the dignity of experts? Ji Huanglin and Gu Hanyue didn't know the reactions of the outside world. They had their own thoughts and goals. Zhou Xuanji did not look at them, but he was curious in his heart. Are these 2 fellows affected by the World Fool Sword? 3 days later. There were only 32 geniuses left on the sacred arena. Except for Ing Zhuge and Chu Machen, no one else dared to act rashly. Who do we fight? Gu Hanyue asked softly. Her eyes were a little excited as she looked around. Don't worry, Zhou Xuanji said. We're competing to see who can't hold back anymore. Those who could persist until now, except for him, were all powerhouses. Most of them had already reached the 9 vast heavens realm. Even if their great paths were suppressed, their magical powers were still powerful. Ji Huanglin glanced at Zhou Xuanji thoughtfully. In the team of 3, the weakest one was actually the one organizing the operation. Unknowingly, Gu Hanyue had already trusted Zhou Xuanji. Ji Huanglin didn't care. Instead, he was observing Zhou Xuanji. This kid is not simple. The corners of Ji Huanglin's mouth curled up as he withdrew his gaze. About 2 hours later, some geniuses could not hold it in anymore and attacked Zhou Xuanji and the others. The leader was the 16-star prodigy Meng Shen. He brought along 2 16-star prodigies and 1 15-star prodigy. They could not bear to see Zhou Xuanji continue living like this. He was too despicable. Humph! Ji Huanglin snorted coldly. His golden great path turned into a giant, blocking the 4 great paths that were attacking him. He stood alone against the powerful enemies, looking awe-inspiring. Gu Hanyue followed suit, while Zhou Xuanji turned around because other geniuses were preparing to deal with them. You guys have to think this through. If I stay until the end, you guys will have a chance of winning. If it's any other genius, you guys will be under a lot of pressure. I've already won first place twice. I don't need another one. I just want to stay a little longer. You guys understand? Zhou Xuanji said with a smile, and the 2 geniuses who were walking toward him stopped immediately. That's right. No matter how cunning Zhou Xuanji was, he had to fight in the end. This kid's great Tao was not considered strong, so he was easy to deal with. They glanced at each other, then turned around and charged at Ji Huanglin and Ji Yunchu's enemies. Are you all idiots? Meng Shen roared angrily, almost dying from anger. However, the other party did not answer him. After they started fighting, the other prodigies followed suit, and a chaotic battle broke out. Zhou Xuanji controlled the sword Dao to coil around his body, forcing the geniuses not to attack him, lest they accidentally hurt him. Gu Hanyue secretly despised him, but she didn't say anything. With Zhou Xuanji around, they were indeed safer. Because those geniuses were too stupid, they actually believed his lies. However, it seems like I believed it too. Gu Hanyue furrowed her brow. She felt that something was wrong. But when she thought that Zhou Xuanji's great Tao wasn't strong, she dispelled her worries. Zhou Xuanji's right hand rested on the World Fool Sword on his waist. He was in a good mood. Come closer, the closer the better. He smiled proudly in his heart, hiding his merits and fame. Unknowingly, except for Ying Zhuge and Chu Mochen, all the other geniuses were within a kilometer radius of him. The World Fool Sword was secretly playing a role. Because there was no Tao energy fluctuation, it made people ignore its existence. The other geniuses also had all kinds of accessories. The superstar divine official could tell who was using an artifact. If everyone could use an artifact, Zhou Xuanji wouldn't need to play. In fact, the effect of the World Fool Sword wasn't that great. It was just a nudge. But sometimes, a little psychological deviation could change people's decisions. What's more, the situation on the sacred arena was changing rapidly. There was no time for them to think calmly. Boom! The great Tao of a 16-star genius was blasted apart. Then, he was moved away from the sacred arena by the superstar divine official. Ying Zhuge, it seems that it will be difficult to determine the winner, Chu Mochen said with a grin. Chu Mochen grinned. His smile was extremely ferocious. Ying Zhuge was expressionless. He didn't make a sound. His gaze was fixed on Zhou Xuanji. Chu Mochen immediately became angry when he saw this little move. This guy dared to be distracted while fighting me. I can't stand it. Chu Mochen immediately activated his great Tao and attacked with all his might. On the other side, Ji Huanglin was getting stronger and stronger. His golden great Tao was like the sun, particularly eye-catching in the chaotic battle. Gu Hanyue's great Tao was like the moon, defending him from the side. Zhou Xuanji would launch an attack from time to time. If he encountered a group attack, he would immediately retract his great Tao and wrap it around his body. The geniuses were defeated one after another. The battle situation was getting more and more serious. When there were only 15 geniuses left on the sacred arena, except for Chu Mochen, Ying Zhuge, Ji Huanglin, and Gu Hanyue, the other 10 geniuses attacked Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji had persuaded almost all of them. How could they tolerate him to continue living at this point? If they let this kid continue, they would be really stupid. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow as he manipulated his sword Dao to cast the primordial chaos sword shadow. The silver great Dao suddenly exploded, turning into billions of sword shadows suspended in the air, layer by layer, until the top of the void. All the geniuses opened their eyes wide. Damn! This is too wretched. Shameless. Everyone, attack together. This kid is unscrupulous in order to survive. There are so many of them. Although they are very weak, it won't be so easy to destroy them all. Chapter 694. Seeing Zhou Xuanji use the primordial chaos sword shadow and transform the great Tao into billions of sword shadows, the outside world was in an uproar. In order to survive, this brat would stop at nothing. Only the longbow divine range was excited. It seemed that Zhou Xuanji could still survive. Perhaps it would give them another surprise. Gu Hanyue looked at Zhou Xuanji with a weird expression and sighed. Is he really shameless? With so many sword shadows, he had to destroy all of them to eliminate his sword Tao. This was not easy, because these sword shadows were all flying around recklessly, and it was very easy for them to harm other great Taos. He was stirring up trouble. Among them, many sword shadows had already approached Zhuge and Chu Machen. Zhou Xuanji said calmly, "How shameless? This is a feast for the eyes for the spectators." That was true. Tens of billions of sword shadows filled the sacred arena. It was a spectacular sight. Even though countless creatures were cursing him for being shameless, it was undeniable that the atmosphere in the outside world was instantly ignited. The superstar divine official was satisfied. If Zhou Xuanji made it into the top 3 again, he would not be disgusted. Instead, it would be even more dramatic. The most important thing about the superstar competition was drama. If they were truly comparing aptitude and strength, why would they need to set up so many events? This was a stage that allowed the prodigies to display their talents in all aspects and boost their fame. The geniuses controlled the great path and charged forward, destroying the sword shadows one after another. It was as if fireworks were blooming above the sacred arena, extremely dazzling. Ji Huanglin and Gu Hanyue immediately stopped and looked up at the battle above. Although it was called a great battle, it was actually the geniuses' great Taos surrounding Zhou Xuanji's sword Tao. Zhou Xuanji's way of the sword was divided into too many parts. Even though they were not dangerous, it would be too difficult to destroy them all. The geniuses didn't dare to let their great Tao unleash its full power, because that would accidentally damage the great Tao of other geniuses. When that happened, they might be surrounded and attacked by other geniuses. The great Tao aptitude competition was coming to an end, so he had to be careful. After Chu Machen was infuriated by Zhuge, he had no scruples at all. The battle between the two 17-star geniuses became more and more violent, and the scope of their battle rapidly expanded. Even though he was far away, Zhou Xuanji was still shocked. Too strong. He even suspected that the superstar divine official had not suppressed their great Taos to the Tao-treading venerable realm. No matter how confident Zhou Xuanji was, he felt that he had no chance of winning against these two geniuses. Soon, another prodigy was eliminated. When he was chasing the primordial chaos sword shadow, he accidentally hit another prodigy. In a short while, half of Zhou Xuanji's primordial chaos sword shadows were destroyed, but the remaining sword shadows were still massive in number. They circled above the sacred platform like a tornado with a diameter of 30,000 meters and a height that seemed limitless. What are you guys waiting for? Make your move. You don't have to worry about injuring my sword Tao. Zhou Xuanji reminded him, looking like he was ready to sacrifice himself for justice. Gu Hanyue and Ji Huanglin nodded and made their moves. Boom! Boom! The battle above them became even more intense. A violent gale blew, causing Zhou Xuanji's white clothes to flutter loudly. An hour later, in addition to the 3 of them, Zhuge and Chu Machen, there were still 2 heavenly talents left. The chaotic battle came to a stop. Rulai Fu stared at Ji Huanglin and said solemnly, "Are you still going to be deceived by him?" Although this fellow had the name of Tathagata, he was not a Buddha. On the contrary, he was handsome and had long black hair. Ji Huanglin, expressionless, said, "Kill him first, then eliminate him, can't you?" Rulai Fu almost exploded in anger. A Tao-treading saint could survive until now, but he, a 16-star prodigy, was going to be targeted? Stupid. He cursed Ji Huanglin in his heart. At this moment, countless creatures were also cursing Ji Huanglin. Because Zhou Xuanji had won first place twice in a row, the vast majority of creatures thought that he would not enter the top 3 again because there had never been such a precedent. They made a lot of bets for this. In their eyes, Ji Huanglin was like their father's murderer. The other prodigy was also furious. He was ready to join forces with Rulai Fu to deal with Ji Huanglin. Wait! Zhou Xuanji suddenly took a step forward and stopped them. Before the two could speak, he took the lead and said, "Think about it, even if we are eliminated, can you compete for the top two?" The two frowned. They understood what he meant, but they still didn't want to be fooled. "You've already come this far. Don't you want to go further?" Zhou Xuanji said with squinted eyes. "In the end, the two of you will have a higher chance of winning against the three of us than against the other two. You know better than me how powerful they are. Moreover, the two beside me won't let me go either. I'll be in the limelight if I get 5th place." When he finished speaking, the outside world was already in an uproar. "This brat! He's too despicable. Are these geniuses idiots? I can't watch this anymore." Of course. Think about it from his perspective. If you were him, wouldn't you want to go further? That's right. Zhou Xuanji is really too weak. If he stays until the end, he will be the best opponent for them. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Most creatures were cursing Zhou Xuanji for being shameless, but there were also many who were convinced by him. Smart and quick-witted. If he was not powerful enough, he could only rely on his brain. Every time Zhou Xuanji spoke, he was very casual, as if he really didn't care about the ranking. Coupled with the World Fool Sword, the ambitions of the geniuses would inevitably grow wildly. Ji Huanglin and Rulai Fu glanced at each other before turning to look at Ing Zhuge and Chu Machin in the distance. Hundreds of millions of sword shadows rained down on Ing Zhuge and Chu Machin's great das. Seeing Zhou Xuanji take the lead, Rulai Fu completely believed him. Zhou Xuanji obviously didn't want to be in the top 3. He just wanted to stay in the top 3 for a while. So, he was willing to be cannon fodder. Ing Zhuge and Chu Machin's great das turned into 2 surging oceans with a diameter of 1,000 feet, just enough to cover them. Boom! 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 The 2 great Dao oceans blocked the primordial chaos sword shadow. The other 4 geniuses immediately rushed up, their great das following suit. Humph! All of you get lost! Chu Machin snorted coldly and shouted in a deep voice. His great Dao immediately split into a fire dragon to resist the joint attack of the 4 geniuses. Ing Zhuge could only be his opponent. He didn't allow others to intervene, even if one of the opponents was his good friend. Zhou Xuanji, watching from afar, sighed in his heart. Why do I feel that I can really enter the top 3? In fact, he was just trying to persuade them. So, his attitude didn't matter. But unknowingly, he had already entered the top 7. Interesting. While Chu Machin was distracted, Ing Zhuge immediately erupted. The blue great Dao suddenly expanded, swallowing Chu Machin's great Dao. It was a shocking scene. Not good. Chu Machin's expression changed drastically. He had already ordered his great Dao to retreat. Ji Huanglin, Rulai Fu, and the other geniuses increased their offensive. This time, Chu Machin was besieged by 5 geniuses. The situation was not optimistic. How could this be? Chu Machin's expression was extremely ugly. Rulai Fu saw hope and worked even harder. Chapter 695. In the face of the joint attack of the 5 prodigies, Chu Machin's great Dao kept retreating, and he was in great pain. At this rate, he would lose without a doubt. After all, Rulai Fu, Ji Huanglin, and the other 2 heavenly geniuses were not easy to deal with. Coupled with the explosive strength of Ing Zhuge, how could Chu Machin be a match for them? Zhou Xuanji did not stray too far away. He moved closer to them, looking like he was going to advance and retreat with the 4 of them. At this moment, the divine range behind Chu Machin was probably in an uproar. Zhou Xuanji could imagine the scene of countless creatures cursing at him. But he didn't care. In the Kunlun Origin Court, divine ranges couldn't fight directly. They could only fight through the Great Elimination. In the Great Elimination, everyone's power was about the same, so Zhou Xuanji was not afraid of anyone. In any case, he and Chu Machin wouldn't run into each other. After the time it takes to burn half an incense stick, Chu Machin finally couldn't take it anymore. His great Dao was blasted apart, and he was eliminated. He looked at Zhou Xuanji and the others furiously, gnashing his teeth. Gu Hanyue heaved a sigh of relief. She walked up to Zhou Xuanji and transmitted her voice. "You are really cunning. If it wasn't for Zhou Xuanji acting first, they would have been delayed for a long time. Because the deterrence of Chu Machan and Ing Zhuge was too great. After Chu Machan was eliminated, the other geniuses all turned to Ing Zhuge. As long as they eliminated Ing Zhuge, they would have the qualifications to compete for first place. Let's attack together, Ing Zhuge said softly, and the blue path above his head suddenly turned into a giant, roaring at the sky with an extremely strong momentum. Seeing this, the four geniuses immediately attacked Ing Zhuge together. Zhou Xuanji closed his eyes and comprehended the Tao. His heart quickly sank into absolute tranquility. Everything around him disappeared, and the great Taos appeared in his perception. Other than the great Taos of the five geniuses, he could also sense the existence of other great Taos stabilizing the sacred arena. He controlled his sword Tao to absorb the great Tao. The rules did not say that he could not cultivate on the spot, but he could not use his treasures. Otherwise, he could rely on the Tianxia map to provide him with an endless supply of Tao power. Of course, the other sky prides definitely had similar methods. Seeing that Zhou Xuanji had entered a state of cultivation, the living beings in the outside world were incredibly excited. You can still cultivate? Rely Fu. Look behind you. It's not that they don't want to watch it, but they are busy dealing with Ing Zhuge. My God, I feel more and more that Zhou Xuanji will counterattack. You're not alone. Everyone was very excited because the outcome of the Great Tao Aptitude competition was about to be decided. The beings of the Longbow Divine Range were also very excited. As long as Zhou Xuanji could enter the top 3, he would create history. He was the only 12-star prodigy who had managed to obtain first place twice and top 3 once in his first attempt. To be precise, no one below the 15-star prodigies had ever won first place twice in a single superstar competition. This kid! The old beggar's eyes widened, and cold sweat covered his forehead. He stared at the screen of light in the sky and prayed for Zhou Xuanji. The others did the same. Even Qiu Hu, who was usually very talkative, shut his mouth and watched the battle nervously. A look of anticipation appeared in Xian Xianghua's eyes. She believed that Zhou Xuanji could give her a pleasant surprise. Boom! 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 5 types of great Taos collided madly with peerless might, causing the sacred arena to shake violently. Gu Hanyue looked back and saw that Zhou Xuanji was in a meditative state. She immediately became angry. She transmitted her voice and asked, "What do you want? Quietly recover while we're fighting? You want to catch us all in one fell swoop?" Zhou Xuanji calmly replied, "Even if I'm at my peak, can I defeat anyone here?" "I don't care. Come here quickly." Gu Hanyue's tone was filled with impatience. If she listened to Zhou Xuanji again, this kid might really become first. I can't tolerate it anymore. Rulai Fu and the prodigies next to him also threw a threatening glance at Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji sighed and had no choice but to charge forward with his sword Dao. He once again used the primordial chaos sword shadow, turning into billions of sword shadows. He first used a billion sword shadows to explore the way before charging forward. Rumble! The 5 great Daos were hit by his billion sword shadows, slamming into the light screen at the edge of the sacred arena as if they were about to break through the light screen. "You!" Rulai Fu said angrily. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Although Zhou Xuanji had accidentally damaged their great Daos, they couldn't blame Zhou Xuanji. Who made him so weak? In addition, once he got close to Ing Zhuge, his great Tao would be destroyed. Ing Zhuge's great Tao giant shook his arms, directly shattering the billion sword shadows. It was extremely domineering. Immediately afterward, the great Tao giant raised his arms as 2 beams of blue light emerged from his palms and soared into the sky. The 2 beams merged into one, condensing into a lightsaber that was 50,000 feet long. The lightsaber slashed downward, bringing with it a sharp gust of wind. The 4 prodigies immediately manipulated their great Daos to cast their divine abilities to block this saber. Boom! The great Daos of Gu Hanyue and another prodigy were directly cut in half. Ji Huanglin and Rulai Fu's great Daos couldn't withstand it and bounced back one after another. This! Gu Hanyue's beautiful eyes widened. She couldn't believe her eyes. The superstar divine official waved his hand and moved them behind him. Gu Hanyue looked back and met Zhou Xuanji's gaze. Zhou Xuanji looked regretful. He even shook his head regretfully. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. This was completely different from what she had expected. She suddenly felt that she had been played by Zhou Xuanji. But thinking about it carefully, Zhou Xuanji didn't target her. She had lost to Ying Zhuge. At the same time, Ying Zhuge erupted and took the initiative to attack Ji Huanglin and Rulai Fu. Not good. Rulai Fu's expression changed drastically as he quickly retreated. He didn't want to be unable to even get into the top 3. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji's great Dao condensed into the shape of a silver sword. It quickly rushed to the back of Rulai Fu's great Dao and slashed wildly. Rulai Fu was caught off guard. He had no time to resist because Ying Zhuge was charging at him. He quickly dodged, staying away from Zhou Xuanji. Ji Huanglin charged at him from the other side. Damn you! Rulai Fu cursed. Why am I being attacked by a group of people all of a sudden? Under the interception of Ji Huanglin's great Dao, Rulai Fu's great Dao could no longer dodge. Zhou Xuanji controlled his sword Dao to cast Void Instant Kill. Swish! Rulai Fu's great Dao was pierced. Rulai Fu's eyes looked hideous. Fortunately, his great Dao was strong enough to hold on. However, Ying Zhuge's great Dao giant appeared behind him out of thin air. With a slash, his great Dao was directly cut off. Rulai Fu, a 16-star prodigy, was eliminated. Only Zhou Xuanji, Ji Huanglin, and Ying Zhuge were left on the sacred arena. Boom! The entire Kunlun Origin Court was in an uproar. Everyone went crazy. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. A Dao-treading saint was able to get into the top 3 of the Great Dao Talent Competition with his own wits. My Origin Court! You aren't lying to me, right? Damn, it's definitely an act. I don't believe it. There must be a divine range controlling the betting. My merit points are all gone. I can't live anymore. These bastards, there's something wrong with their brains. Zhou Xuanji got into the top 3. I can't bear it. I absolutely can't bear it. Are you telling me this is true? Chapter 696. Top 3. Zhou Xuanji let out a long sigh, a smile appearing on his face. This result had already made him very happy. Whatever happens next. He twisted his neck with a relaxed look on his face. Ji Huanglin and Ying Zhuge, on the other hand, were at loggerheads. Neither of them took Zhou Xuanji seriously because Zhou Xuanji's sword Dao was pitifully weak. Moreover, if they attacked Zhou Xuanji, it would give the other person a chance to take advantage of him. Ji Huanglin, I admire you very much. Just admit defeat directly. Otherwise, it will affect your performance in the competition of strength, Ying Zhuge said with an indifferent look. He was like a proud and aloof emperor. He didn't put Ji Huanglin in his eyes at all. The corner of Ji Huanglin's mouth rose as he said with a smile, There aren't many opportunities to fight with you. Not to mention, in terms of real strength, I am indeed not as good as you. But now you and I should fight. Not far away, Zhou Xuanji asked, Ji Huanglin, do you want me to help you? He had taken advantage of Ji Huanglin a lot. He wanted to return the favor. As for winning or not, he didn't care. Third place was enough. Sharpness was easy to break. No need, just watch from the side. If I win, you still have the hope of competing for first place. If I lose, it doesn't matter to me who the second place is, Ji Huanglin replied. His eyes didn't leave Ying Zhuge at all. As soon as he finished speaking, he directly controlled the Great Dao and slammed into Ying Zhuge's Great Dao giant. A great battle broke out again. Zhou Xuanji blinked. Is he going to give me the second place? He sighed. This time, it's really not that I want to be the second place shamelessly. His sigh was seen by all living beings. They could use their divine will to scan the light screen and hear their conversation. Shameless. This is too. Oh my God. He still has a helpless look on his face. This is totally taking advantage of him and still acting innocent. Are the thoughts of super geniuses so strange? Why didn't I meet such a genius when I participated in the superstar competition? Everyone exclaimed. Ji Huanglin's words made countless creatures vomit blood. Especially those creatures who bet on him to get second place. Losing everything. The entire Longbow divine range shook. Old Ancestor Longbow's loud laughter came from the top. Even though he had a high cultivation, he couldn't cover the cheers of the entire divine range. Even though Zhou Xuanji had won first place twice, The creatures still didn't expect him to enter the top 3. From the looks of it, he could still get second place. Once he became second, the Longbow Divine Range would truly have a turnaround. Ever since Xueqi got first place in the Dao debate, the Longbow Divine Range had gained many industries and good relations with the Divine Ranges. Together with the merit points they had bet on Xueqi, they had made a lot of money. It was no exaggeration to say that Xueqi had become the hero of the Longbow Divine Range. Even the other Divine Ranges nearby benefited from him. Xueqi was meditating on the ground with his arms folded across his chest, quietly watching the battle between Ji Huanglin and Ying Zhuge. It could be seen that Ji Huanglin was no match for Ying Zhuge. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Ying Zhuge, on the other hand, was calm and collected. Who was this guy in his previous life? That's way too strong. Xueqi sighed in his heart. In his eyes, Ying Zhuge's aura was no different from a Dao ancestor. It was hard to imagine how terrifying this guy would be if he was unrestricted. Ying Zhuge said, "Ji Huanglin, are you sure you want to continue?" Ji Huanglin's expression didn't change as he continued to attack. Ying Zhuge shook his head, and then his eyes narrowed. The Great Dao Giant suddenly rose and angrily slashed at Ji Huanglin's Great Dao. Boom! A bright light burst out. Ji Huanglin took 12 steps back. His face turned pale. He wasn't defeated. He was still holding on. His Great Dao was like a fallen leaf in the wind and rain. It would scatter at any time. It's over? Xueqi raised his brow. He couldn't wait to end it. After the Great Dao talent competition was the competition of strength. Soon, the superstar competition would end. He could then cultivate in peace and become stronger as soon as possible. What he was looking forward to the most was the Great Dao tempering pool. It would be great if his sword Dao could transform. Just as Xueqi was lost in his thoughts, Ji Huanglin's Great Dao suddenly burst out with a bright light. An earth-shattering explosion resounded. Xueqi was sent flying by a powerful and unstoppable gust of wind. He crashed into the light curtain on the edge of the sacred arena. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth, spilling all over the ground. Damn! Xueqi cursed in his heart. He felt a churning pain in his internal organs. He even felt as if he was seeing stars. He landed on the ground and forced himself not to kneel down. The Great Dao Talent Competition is over. Longbow Divine Range's 12-star genius Xueqi won first place. He will get 1.5 billion merit points and the opportunity of the Great Dao tempering pool for half a year. The superstar divine official's voice came from the sky. The sacred arena immediately fell silent. All the geniuses floating in the air were dumbfounded. They didn't expect this result at all. On the other side of the sacred arena, Ying Zhuge and Ji Huanglin also stopped. They also looked a little surprised. Ying Zhuge furrowed his brow. A look of displeasure flashed in his eyes. Ji Huanglin was stunned. He fell into a trance. Xueqi was also stunned. Happiness came too fast. He couldn't react in time. I won just like that. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Ying Zhuge and Ji Huanglin in confusion. The uproar of the Kunlun Origin Court had already caused the universe space to tremble. Motherf ****. Is this real? Are you kidding me? He can win like that? Is he pretending to be injured? This is too fake. Protest. He won. What an upset. My merit points. I'm not convinced. This is definitely a shady deal in the superstar competition. A million years later, I must tell my descendants not to bet in the superstar competition. Absolutely not. All the divine ranges and origin cities were in an uproar. Shouts, exclamations, cheers, screams, and so on converged together. It was deafening. 1.5 billion. I'm rich. Xueqi smiled. He looked very calm on the surface, but he would laugh his head off in the future. In this superstar competition, he had obtained a total of 2.7 billion merit points. 2.7 billion. Some small divine ranges could only earn so many merit points in a year. Next, the superstar divine official sent them out of the sacred arena. Xueqi is also the first person under the age of 1,000 to win first place in the superstar competition 3 times. He is also the one with the best results under 15-star aptitude. Remember, he is less than 600 years old this year. He is not a native of the Kunlun origin court, nor is he the reincarnation of a powerful cultivator. He comes from a mortal world and has fought his way to this point. Please remember this name. He will shine in the entire Kunlun origin court. The superstar divine official's tone was impassioned. Countless creatures came back to their senses and were shocked. In the eyes of most creatures, Xueqi was a dark horse. But they didn't expect his experience to be so legendary. He's less than 600 years old, and he came from a mortal world. The superstar divine official's words changed Xueqi's image. He had changed from a wretched, unscrupulous villain to a hard-working, inspiring miracle. Chapter 697. After returning to the superstar sacred steel, Xueqi caught the attention of all the geniuses. Even Xueqi and Chu Machun were looking at him. Xueqi's eyes were filled with curiosity. He was attracted by Xueqi's experience. Chu Machun, on the other hand, had a complicated expression. He was very angry, but he knew that he should not vent his anger on Xueqi, because that would be unbecoming of a powerful cultivator. He could only hate those super prodigies who had eliminated him. Gu Hanyue quickly walked up to Xueqi and said angrily, "You are really something. How could you get first place like that? Did you deliberately let your guard down just now?" Xueqi won the first place by being accidentally injured. It was so dramatic that Gu Hanyue was very envious. She originally had a bad impression of Xueqi, but seeing that he really got first place, she could not help but change her opinion of him. No matter what, the result was everything. It was not as simple as luck to be able to rank first in the great Tao with the cultivation of a Tao-treading saint. Together with the superstar divine official's introduction, she looked at Xueqi again and felt that there was a halo around him. "You really did it on purpose. That's good," Xueqi said helplessly as he wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth. To be honest, he really didn't expect this. The other geniuses came up to congratulate Xueqi. After hearing the superstar divine official's words, they all felt that Xueqi was not just a 12-star genius. Such a prodigy must be befriended. Fierce lightning sovereign sized up Xueqi from high up in the sky and was shocked in his heart. He did not expect such a character to appear in this superstar competition. He previously felt that this superstar competition wouldn't be too exciting because he had hosted many superstar competitions. He felt that this superstar competition would only be a contest between Xueqi and Chu Machun. After living for countless years, he had even seen 18-star prodigies. 2 17-star prodigies naturally wouldn't pique his interest. This brat is interesting. I reckon that Ji Zun will like him. The corners of Fierce Thunder Sovereign's mouth curled upwards. These words were spoken in his heart. Since the competition of strength was the last event, the superstar competition would give the geniuses some time to rest in order to make it exciting. At the same time, it was a chance for all the divine ranges and origin cities to open their bids. Xueqi became the most popular person. Almost all the geniuses came up to befriend him. Those who had lost to him in the past also took the initiative to express their goodwill. They weren't stupid. After the superstar competition, Xueqi would definitely soar into the sky and become a powerful existence. Coupled with his growth speed, only God knew what kind of existence he would become. He had become the champion of the superstar competition 3 times before he was 600 years old. Furthermore, he had come from the lower realm and fought his way up as a mortal. They even cursed in their hearts. Who had tested Xueqi for 12-star aptitude? It was as if he was deliberately tricking them. The outside world. Hong Yuan, the high-level examiner who had tested Xueqi's aptitude, was covered in cold sweat. He could not sit still. This kid. Hong Yuan was also doubting himself. Why could he not see through Xueqi? Could it be that there was really a problem with his assessment ability? He fell into a daze, unable to extricate himself. Xueqi recuperated as he waited for the competition of strength to begin. It took a lot of time to exchange pleasantries with more than 2,000 prodigies, and he had to endure the pain. About half a month passed. The competition of strength had finally begun. This time, all the top 100 super prodigies were participating. Just like the Great Tao Talent competition, it was a chaotic battle. However, they could go all out in the competition of strength. They did not have to worry about hurting others. The superstar divine official would try his best to save them. But if a prodigy died tragically, it would be normal. The divine ranges could not object. The sacred arena, which was tens of thousands of meters wide, seemed so small. A terrifying battle broke out between a group of people who surpassed Tao Ancestor. The light screen of the sacred arena twisted wildly as if it would shatter at any time. Xueqi was also watching the battle. He found that his eyes could not keep up with the speed of these prodigies. Too fast. A bunch of freaks, Xueqi exclaimed in amazement. Xueqi was amazed. He heard that none of the top 100 geniuses were more than 10,000 years old. In the entire superstar competition, the oldest one was no more than 100,000 years old. 100,000 years old was still considered young in the Kunlun origin court. This battle lasted for a long time. The outcome was not beyond anyone's expectations. Xueqi, who was going all out, beat up the entire battlefield. He fought all the prodigies alone. No one under 16-star aptitude could take a single move from him. He was so powerful that he could explode. This battle was the least suspenseful. Before this, Xueqi thought that Chu Machin would have a 50-50 chance against Xueqi. He didn't expect Chu Machin to be pressed to the ground and hammered. Even if someone joined forces with him to deal with Xueqi, they still had no power to resist. Xueqi got up slowly and looked at the geniuses descending from the cloud vortex. His eyes were locked on Xueqi. Xueqi felt his gaze and couldn't help but look over. Their eyes met, and their gazes collided in the air. If it was before their great Tao aptitude, Xueqi would definitely not have taken a fancy to Xueqi. Xueqi, work hard to grow. I want to fight with you at the same stage. Xueqi looked down at Xueqi and said. His voice was loud and clear, resounding through the sea of clouds. All the geniuses heard him and looked at Xueqi in surprise. Xueqi nodded lightly and did not reply. It wasn't that he was afraid, but he didn't have the right to say nice words. He could only use his actions to prove himself. The Great Tao Tempering Pool will open at any time after the Superstar competition. Everyone can head to the Void Boundary Palace. There is a teleportation array there. The Ferocious Thunder Sovereign said. Then, teleportation gates rose from the ground one after another, as though they were virtual projections. At this point, the Superstar competition was over. Xueqi turned around and was about to leave. Gu Hanyue came up to him. Her face was covered in blood, and her hair was a little messy. But she still looked excited. Xueqi, when are you going to the Great Tao Tempering Pool? Xueqi glanced at her and asked, Why? You want to take a bath with me? Gu Hanyue's face immediately turned cold when she heard this. She snorted and said, Wishful thinking. I just want to know more about you. If possible, you can come to our divine range. We are a top-tier divine range that ranks in the top 100. Xueqi shook his head and said, I have no intention of going to other divine ranges for the time being. He continued to move forward and walked toward the teleportation gate. You! Gu Hanyue's beautiful eyes widened. She was so angry that she couldn't speak. This kid tricked me and he doesn't want to talk to me for a while? No wonder his talent is so terrifying. He must have spent all his time on cultivation. What a blockhead. A month later, find Heavenly Sage Zhan Yan in the Void Boundary Palace. He will take you to reassess your aptitude. Ferocious Thunder Sovereign's voice suddenly rang in Xueqi's ears. Xueqi looked back and could no longer see Ferocious Thunder Sovereign. He smiled, turned around, walked into the teleportation gate, and disappeared. Back in the Saint Competition building in the Origin City, Xueqi was greeted by deafening cheers the moment he walked out of the teleportation array. He opened his eyes and found that the entire Saint Competition building was packed. Everyone was looking at him with excitement and fanaticism. Some even knelt down on the spot and worshipped him. Chapter 698. Xueqi, you're too powerful. Admirable. How did you do it? Your performance in the Great Tao is heaven-defying. He's so young. Seeing him with my own eyes, it feels so unreal. In this superstar competition, apart from Xueqi, he's the most in the limelight. Did he really come from the lower realm? Looking at these people's excited expressions, Zhou Xuanji shook his head and smiled before disappearing. Cheng Jiu, Longbow Patriarch, Yu Shenzhong, and other members of the Longbow Divine Range were already waiting outside. There are so many people. How do we squeeze in? Yu Shenzhong was so anxious that he kept stomping his feet. He couldn't possibly make a move, as that would make too many enemies. Ancestor Longbow was still in a state of excitement. No one knew what he was mumbling. At that moment, Zhou Xuanji appeared in front of them, and they quickly surrounded him. Everyone was so excited that they were talking incoherently. Under their escort, Zhou Xuanji returned to the Longbow Divine Range. Along the way, they met many creatures. Those creatures were very excited to see Zhou Xuanji. The Superstar competition was a grand event for the entire Kunlun Origin Court. All creatures had seen Zhou Xuanji, so they could recognize him at a glance. Now, Zhou Xuanji was a well-known face in the Kunlun Origin Court. His fame spread throughout the universe in a single day. After returning to the Yu family, Zhou Xuanji directly went to the courtyard. Xian Xianghua, the old beggar, and Yu Zhongxiu had been waiting for a long time, and seeing him, they all leapt at him. Xian Xianghua was the first to hug him. She pinched his face and said with a smile, "Lang Jun, you're really amazing." This time, she did not add the word little in front of Lang Jun. The others followed suit and fought to be the first to speak. Zhou Xuanji did not know who to answer. He had already guessed that this would happen, so he was not surprised. The Superstar competition was conducted in front of everyone's eyes. Zhou Xuanji didn't need to introduce the process. He just talked about his state of mind. Everyone was speechless when they learned that this guy was very calm in the Superstar competition. Actually, this was very normal. One could not feel the excitement of all living beings in the sacred arena. After chatting for 2 hours, Zhou Xuanji returned to his room. Xian Xianghua followed him into the house. They were already husband and wife. Usually, when Xian Xianghua came back, she would stay in his room. Yu Zhongxiu would avoid looking at her every time. After returning to Skyfall, the two of them gathered all of Emperor Sword Court's higher-ups. Xian Xianghua was the first to tell everyone about this matter, and everyone fell into a state of shock. "How long has it been?" "Father, is what Aunt Xian said true?" Zhou Shaoxian swallowed her saliva. She didn't know how strong a Dao ancestor was, let alone how high the 9 vast heavens were. But Zhou Xuanji had conquered the top of the universe. Even his own daughter couldn't believe it. Jiang Shui looked at Zhou Xuanji with a face full of admiration. She hugged his right arm with both of her hands like a little bird. Daoya old man sighed. "Monster, monster!" Xiao Jinghong, Zhao Tsongjian, Lin Changge, and the others were so excited that they kept waving their fists. Too domineering. Too awesome. Even the ceiling at the peak of the universe could not block Zhou Xuanji's brilliance. "You guys cultivate well. I will let Xian Xianghua manage the 24-stage Deep Black Lotus. When your cultivation is high enough, I will bring you guys to the Kunlun Origin Court one by one. As for me, I will cultivate with all my might. One day, I will open a divine vein for the Emperor Sword Court and we won't have to depend on others," Zhou Xuanji said with a smile. His words made everyone's blood boil. Open divine meridians. Strive for the Origin Court. Thinking about the great eliminations, professions, and all kinds of competitions in the Kunlun Origin Court, they couldn't help but feel excited. That was the real stage. On the same day, the Emperor Sword Court held a banquet to celebrate. The disciples of the Emperor Sword Court thought that their grand teacher had returned. They were all very happy and excited. As for the existence of the Kunlun Origin Court, it was not made public. Knowing about the Kunlun Origin Court too early was not a good thing for the disciples of the Emperor Sword Court. It was easy to bite off more than they could chew and not be satisfied with their current achievements. It was like a person who knew that his grandfather was a billionaire. His usual salary was 2,000 yuan, and his grandfather threw 10,000 yuan to him, but he still felt that it was nothing. It was difficult to feel a sense of accomplishment. After a few days of revelry, Zhou Xuanji preached to the disciples of the Emperor Sword Court. He used the Sword Master Hockey and Great Dao's voice to lead the tens of millions of disciples to cultivate. After 20 days, he left the world in the lotus and handed the 24-stage Deep Black Lotus to Xian Xianghua. At the same time, he gave Xian Xianghua 10 million merit points to go out and do fewer missions. He told her to stay in the Kunlun origin court and cultivate well. With Xian Xianghua's strength, it was too dangerous for her to leave the Kunlun origin court. Xian Xianghua had no objection to this. After witnessing the superstar competition, she also wanted to cultivate well. At least, she wanted to increase her cultivation. Zhou Xuanji left the Yu family and prepared to go to the Void Boundary Palace. After that, he would enter the Great Dao Tempering Pool to cultivate. Just as he was about to fly out of the Longbow Divine Range, old ancestor Longbow suddenly blocked his way. "Brother Zhou, are you going to the Great Dao Tempering Pool?" Old ancestor Longbow asked with a smile. He looked a little nervous. In the past month, the Longbow Divine Range had been trampled by envoys from various divine ranges. These divine ranges were all stronger than the Longbow Divine Range, making it difficult for him to neglect any of them. Even the top 1,000 divine range giants had sent envoys to visit him. "Yes, what can I do for you?" Zhou Xuanji nodded. He had guessed the other party's intention. Now, he didn't lack merit points. As long as the Longbow Divine Range dared to keep him, he would continue to stay. "You are already famous. You need to be careful. Some divine ranges will do anything to rope you in," old ancestor Longbow sighed. He used to place his hopes on Zhou Xuanji. But now, he couldn't take it anymore. The conditions offered by those giants were too generous. With those conditions, the Longbow Divine Range would be out of danger and even reach a higher level. And if Zhou Xuanji grew stronger, he would fly away sooner or later. But he really couldn't bear to part with Zhou Xuanji. With Zhou Xuanji around, the Longbow Divine Range would be popular. Not only could it earn a lot of merit points, but it could also attract countless creatures to flock to the Longbow Divine Range. Now, who didn't know that the Longbow Divine Range had found a super genius from the black market? Such a thing was extremely rare even in history. Zhou Xuanji asked with narrowed eyes. "Senior, if you have any difficulties, you can tell me at any time. Your Longbow Divine Range took me in, which is why I have today's prestige. No matter where I am in the future, the Longbow Divine Range will always be in my heart. If I can dominate the Origin Court in the future, I will surely support the Longbow Divine Range." These words were spoken from the bottom of his heart. If it was another divine range who bought him, he might still be a slave. Hearing this, old ancestor Longbow was moved. He even had a feeling of tears in his eyes. He patted Zhou Xuanji's shoulder heavily and said, "I will try my best to keep you. But if I encounter a divine range that can really help you develop better, I will let you go. Whether you leave or stay, you can rest assured. Even if I have to hand you over, I will choose a divine range that is truly suitable for you." That was all he had to say. He had made himself very clear. Zhou Xuanji exchanged some pleasantries with him before heading to the Origin City. No matter where he went, his strength was the most important. Chapter 699. Zhou Xuanji came to the Void Boundary Palace through the Origin City's Vocation Palace. He came to the tower where Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan had appeared before and waited. Sure enough, in less than 10 breaths of time, Emperor Zhen Yan appeared. Fierce Thunder Venerate had said that if he came to the Great Dao Tempering Pool, he would have to find Heavenly Venerate Zhen Yan to retest his aptitude. "You did very well in the Superstar competition. I will use my connections to let you stay in the Great Dao Tempering Pool for a year. Make good use of it." Emperor Zhen Yan smiled and said kindly. He was like a completely different person from before. It was evident that Zhou Xuanji had given him a big surprise. Zhou Xuanji nodded and said, "Many thanks, Heavenly Sovereign." Emperor Zhen Yan smiled and said, "There's no need to thank me. Continue to maintain your sharpness. The better you perform, the more benefits I can gain and the more face I will have." After that, he brushed past Zhou Xuanji and said, "Follow me, I will bring you to test your talent again." Zhou Xuanji immediately followed. Now that he had created a sword Dao, his aptitude should be even higher. However, he wasn't expecting too much. At least he knew his own limits. Under the lead of Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan, Zhou Xuanji came to an empty palace. The walls were engraved with many ancient patterns. They were vivid and lifelike, as if many divine beasts would rush out at any time. As soon as they walked in, a golden mirror rose from the ground. It was 3 feet wide and 3 feet tall. Standing in front of it, Your aptitude will be completely revealed, including your potential. Emperor Zhen Yan said with some anticipation in his eyes. Zhou Xuanji walked up to the golden mirror curiously. Under his gaze, there was no change in the golden mirror. It was still calm. He waited patiently, not in a hurry. Time ticked by. After the time it took half an incense stick to burn, Zhou Xuanji frowned. It couldn't be broken, could it? He was about to turn around and ask Emperor Zhen Yan when a line of words appeared on the mirror. Heavenly Tao Creation Heart Exterminating Divine Eyes Diagram of Providence Serendipity Great Way of the Sword. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes wide. Wasn't this too detailed? It could even detect the fortuitous opportunity of the primordial world? Aptitude cannot be determined. Can be an 18-star aptitude. A cold voice came from the golden mirror, which stunned Zhou Xuanji. 18-star? Heavenly Venerable Zhen Yan's eyes also widened, and both of them instantly became anxious. 18-star. Just a 12-star aptitude was enough for him to open the back door and take care of him. What did 18-star aptitude mean to him? Even he couldn't speak. At this moment, his mind was blank. There was surprise, bewilderment, and a strong sense of dread. Such a genius was not someone he could control. If there were no accidents, Zhou Xuanji would catch up to him in 10,000 years. The more he thought about it, the more complicated it became. Zhou Xuanji turned and looked at him with a complicated gaze. Now that his trump card was exposed in front of Emperor Zhen Yan, he was naturally a little unhappy. Emperor Zhen Yan sighed and said, 18 stars, unbelievable. Zhou Xuanji could not help but ask, you saw it just now? When Emperor Zhen Yan heard this, he immediately laughed loudly. Only the examiner will be able to see his own potential, while the others can only hear the report from the mirror. This is also a form of protection for the geniuses. The only existence that can see your potential is probably the sovereign. However, the sovereign is busy in seclusion, so how would he have the time to pay attention to your mirror? Emperor Zhen Yan shook his head and smiled. After saying that, he became excited again. An 18-star aptitude. How many years had it been since the Kunlun Origin Court had given birth to such a genius? Furthermore, this kid was not the reincarnation of an ancient almighty being. He immediately said, go to the Great Tao Tempering Pool first. Work hard. After that, he personally brought Zhou Xuanji to the Great Tao Tempering Pool. The Great Tao Tempering Pool was located above the Void Boundary Palace. It belonged to another realm and was heavily guarded. The ordinary soldiers guarding this place all had Tao ancestor cultivation, and the general guarding this place was even more unfathomable. Even Emperor Zhen Yan had to bow to him. Dark clouds roiled here. There was a giant door in front of them, and above it was endless darkness. This boy has 18-star aptitude. I hope everyone can give him as much time as possible. Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan said, cupping his fists. As soon as he said this, all the soldiers looked at Zhou Xuanji in shock. The Guardian General was 100 feet tall. He was wearing heavy black armor with a breastplate that looked like a dragon's head. His face was covered in a long beard, making him look like a demonic version of Zhang Fei. He looked down at Zhou Xuanji and said in amazement, 18-star aptitude, no wonder you performed so well in the superstar competition. All right, go in, you can stay inside for 2 years. Zhou Xuanji was stunned. 2 years already? It seemed like the Kunlun Origin Court really gave preferential treatment to geniuses. He immediately bowed and walked into the giant door. Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan left quickly after bowing to the Guardian General. It wouldn't take long for Zhou Xuanji's aptitude to spread throughout the Kunlun Origin Court. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji was walking on the sea of clouds. Along the way, he saw many warm water pools hidden in the clouds. Some were big, some were small, and most of the pools were already occupied. It was dead silent here. Only after walking in did he realize that there were so many powerful cultivators here. He didn't make a sound and soon found a great Tao tempering pool without any spirit. He walked straight into the pool and felt cold all over his body. He crossed his legs and began to circulate the greatly divine suppressor technique. Boom! Zhou Xuanji felt that he was in the great Tao. As soon as he started cultivating, he felt that Tao energy was rushing at him from all directions, making his consciousness fall into chaos. His eyes unconsciously opened, revealing a pair of purple eyes that looked incomparably demonic. Longbow Divine Range. Inside the ancestral hall. Old Ancestor Longbow and a group of high-level figures were standing in the hall. Sitting on the main seat was an evil-looking man. He was wearing a black and purple dragon robe. 2 fangs could be seen under his lips. He was wearing a phoenix feather crown on his head. He was sitting lazily. There was another person standing next to him. It was Ji Huanglin. Have you thought about it? The man in the dragon robe asked casually. Although his eyes were calm, they were full of majesty. Old Ancestor Longbow gritted his teeth and said, Sovereign, your conditions are indeed generous, but you must guarantee that after Zhou Xuanji goes to your place, you will train him with all your might. You can't let him be neglected. Sovereign. The man in the dragon robe was the range master of the 19th Divine Range. His name was Beast Sovereign. His strength was unfathomable. Beast Sovereign snorted and said in a displeased tone, If this sovereign doesn't value him, will I come in person? In the past, Old Ancestor Longbow wouldn't even be qualified to see him. But for him to speak like this was already giving him enough face. Old Ancestor Longbow sighed and said, I agree. Ji Huanglin rolled his eyes and said, You already have enough resources. You have made a big profit this time. Don't you think it's a little rude to show an expression of being bullied? Old Ancestor Longbow felt embarrassed and quickly apologized. The other high-level figures of the Longbow Divine Range looked delighted. This was a deal that satisfied them all. It could even be said that they were pleasantly surprised. A genius like Zhou Xuanji would be a hidden danger if he stayed in the Longbow Divine Range. It felt so good to have such a surprise while sending him away. Chapter 700. Zhou Xuanji didn't know about the deal between Longbow Divine Range and Beast Sovereign. He was immersed in the Great Tao Tempering Pool. At this moment, his mind was in a mysterious state. His consciousness was empty, but it was still there. This feeling was very mysterious. Perhaps this was the absolute calm that the old immortal mentioned. He instinctively activated the greatly divine suppressor technique and began cultivating. Time flew. God knew how long it had been. Zhou Xuanji suddenly felt his soul shake. His consciousness instantly sobered up. He found himself immersed in the Great Tao Tempering Pool. Sword Daos wrapped around his body and materialized into dozens of silver swords. It was very dazzling. Zhou Xuanji was pleasantly surprised. He found that his sword Daos were more than 100 times stronger. He immediately entered a meditative state and began devouring the Tao energy around him to help his cultivation grow rapidly. The Tao energy here was endless and didn't have any strong resistance. He could absorb it like a sponge. Awesome! This is so awesome! Zhou Xuanji wanted to let out a long cry, but it was very difficult to do so in the Great Tao Tempering Pool. Moreover, it could easily affect others who were cultivating. Time continued to pass. On this day, he finally broke through. Intermediate Tao Treading Saint. The Tao energy was like a stream that turned into a majestic river. It was unstoppable. The violent Tao energy made the water in the Great Tao Tempering Pool churn as if the water was boiling. Fortunately, it didn't make any sound. The surface of the pool was still calm. Under such a state, Zhou Xuanji continued to cultivate. His greatly divine suppressor technique was also improving endlessly. It was unstoppable. No wonder the Great Tao Tempering Pool became the biggest attraction of the superstar competition. It was really exciting. If he could continue cultivating here, he didn't even dare to predict how powerful he would become. The speed of cultivation here was incomparable to the 4-star Tao rooms. Unfortunately, time passed quickly. A year passed in the blink of an eye. While Zhou Xuanji was cultivating, he was suddenly pulled out of the Great Tao Tempering Pool by an extremely powerful force. When he opened his eyes again, he was standing in front of the giant gate. You can break through to the intermediate Tao Treading Saint in just a year. If you stay here for 100 years, won't you become a Tao ancestor directly? A 700-year-old Tao ancestor, TSK, the Guardian General sighed. The General sighed in amazement. Zhou Xuanji got up and bowed to him. Senior, how can I obtain the opportunity of the Great Tao Tempering Pool? Zhou Xuanji cupped his fist and asked. Anticipation could be seen in his eyes. The defending general couldn't help but laugh and said boldly, Go back and ask Heavenly Venerable Zhen Yan. In order to nurture you, he will definitely arrange relevant missions for you. Zhou Xuanji noticed his strange expression, and so did the soldiers around him. Their gazes were filled with respect and admiration. He had not been like this before entering the great Dao tempering pool. Zhou Xuanji did not think too much and left quickly. Returning to the void boundary hall, he did not go to find Emperor Zhen Yan, but directly returned home. A year had passed. He had to go back and take a look. Although she had the protection of the longbow divine range, he was still worried about her. Along the way, every living being that saw him would exclaim in surprise. "It's him! Zhou Xuanji!" He came out of the void boundary palace. An 18-star prodigy. It's too scary. No wonder he was able to win first place in the superstar competition 3 times in a row. Why aren't those who mocked him jumping out anymore? Origin Court is really laughable. An 18-star genius was misjudged to be 12-star. They almost buried Zhou Xuanji. His cultivation has already reached the mid-stage of the Dao treading saint? Zhou Xuanji listened to these discussions with a strange expression. The news of him attaining 18-star aptitude had spread so quickly? Was it done by the Origin Court, or was it deliberately pushed by Heavenly Venerable Zhen Yan? Not only that, but he also heard about the deal between the Longbow Divine Range and the Evil Sky Divine Range. The Longbow Divine Range couldn't withstand the pressure and wanted to send him out. The Evil Sky Divine Range was ranked 19th among the Super Divine Ranges. Ji Huanglin also belonged to this divine range. Zhou Xuanji was not disappointed by this but rather looked forward to it. If he entered the Evil Sky Divine Range, would he be able to obtain the fortuitous opportunity of the Great Dao Tempering Pool? He was already addicted to the Great Dao Tempering Pool. He loved the feeling of quickly becoming stronger. At the same time, he wanted to complete the mission as soon as possible. Reach the Dao Ancestor Realm within 1,000 years. In this way, he would be able to obtain the wish-fulfilling sword. His goal was the Wishing Gold Treasure Basket. In this way, the number of his divine swords would double in the future, which was equivalent to his strength increasing exponentially. Just thinking about it made him happy. In a good mood, he quickly returned to the Longbow Divine Range's Yu clan. After returning to the courtyard, Zhou Xuanji saw that only Yu Zhongxiu was there. She sat in the stone pavilion, dignified and beautiful, like a painting. Zhou Xuanji asked curiously, "Why are you here? Where are they?" Yu Zhongxiu had a complicated look in her eyes as she said faintly, "They are all cultivating in the Dao Tower." Looking at Zhou Xuanji, she felt very complicated. The current Zhou Xuanji was no longer someone she could climb up to. She regretted it. If she knew this would happen, she would have taken the initiative to capture the man in front of her. In the future, she might never have the chance to see him again. Thinking of this, Yu Zhongxiu's heart turned sour. "Lady Yu, why are you waiting for me here?" Zhou Xuanji asked. He could sense this woman's feelings but he wasn't interested. It was so easy for him to get a woman. His relationship and experience with Yu Zhongxiu couldn't move him. "The Evil Sky Divine Range wants to take you away. Are you willing?" Yu Zhongxiu asked. Old Ancestor Longbow was too ashamed to come, so he sent her. Even if Zhou Xuanji was in a bad mood, he wouldn't vent it on a woman. Zhou Xuanji calmly nodded and asked, "When do we depart?" "Any time." Just when Yu Zhongxiu was about to answer, Ji Huanglin walked into the courtyard. Zhou Xuanji turned to look at him and asked curiously, "Did you ask Beast Sovereign to take me in?" He had a good impression of Ji Huanglin. This person was open and aboveboard. He would not bully the weak and had the demeanor of a powerful cultivator. Ji Huanglin shook his head and said, "Your talent is desired by all divine ranges. However, ever since your aptitude of 18-star was announced, more divine ranges came. The Longbow Divine Range is probably regretting their decision. If they had a few more days, they might have gotten double the benefits." Speaking of this, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yu Zhongxiu felt very awkward and didn't interrupt. The Longbow Divine Range was a lower middle-tier divine range after all. Facing a super genius, they could only give way. "Then let's depart after my people come back," Zhou Xuanji muttered. Zhou Xuanji muttered. He had heard about the Evil Sky Divine Range long ago. Although the name had the word evil in it, the Evil Sky Divine Range had a very positive reputation. No matter who they fought, The evil sky divine range was extremely domineering and never plotted. Especially Beast Sovereign, who was famous in the Kunlun origin court. His power was extremely terrifying. Yu Zhongxiu said, I will send someone to inform them. After all, some of them don't know about your latest situation. They might be in closed-door cultivation for decades or even longer. Since she couldn't make Zhou Xuanji stay, she could only try to leave a good impression on him before he left. What if they could meet again in the future? Chapter 701. Thank you, Miss Yu. Zhou Xuanji looked at Yu Zhongxiu and said slowly, It was Miss Yu who bought us from the black market. It's hard to predict fate, but if you have any difficulties in the future, you can come and find me. Although he had been bought by Yu Zhongxiu, he had never suffered any hardship. His treatment was vastly different from that of the slaves in the Longbow Divine Range. Yu Zhongxiu's emotions surged as she listened to his words, and all the words she wanted to say turned into a heavy nod. She quickly left to gather Xian Xianghua and the others for Zhou Xuanji. Ji Huanglin looked at Zhou Xuanji and said, You are a void boundary war god, right? There's a mission after this. Let's do it together. This is a great opportunity. I'll do my best to protect you. What serendipity? Zhou Xuanji asked. In his eyes, apart from the great Dao tempering pool, there was nothing else that could be considered a fortuitous opportunity. It's a divine fruit that only bears fruit once every billion years. We need to snatch it. I'll tell you the specifics when the time comes. The rewards for this mission are also very great. One of them is the time spent in the great Dao tempering pool. Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji's interest was immediately piqued. He wasn't worried that Ji Huanglin would harm him. If that was the case, there was no need for Ji Huanglin to personally come to the Longbow Divine Range. Moreover, this mission wouldn't start immediately. The two began chatting in the courtyard. Ji Huanglin was very curious about Zhou Xuanji's experience, while Zhou Xuanji was curious about the evil sky divine range. The two told each other everything they knew and chatted happily. On that day, Xian Xianghua, the old beggar, Qiu Hu, and the others all returned. Shang Tiandao said excitedly, 18-star aptitude. Evil sky divine range. I really admire you to the point of prostrating myself before you. He rejoiced that he could cozy up to Zhou Xuanji before he left the heavenly law universe. It was the same for the others. Especially the old beggar. After knowing that Zhou Xuanji had 18-star talent, he became very worried. All along, he felt that he was the one who discovered Zhou Xuanji. But after hearing this news, he felt a great headache. He rode on Zhou Xuanji's coattails. No wonder that guy was so desperate for this kid. The old beggar sighed in his heart, while Gu Tianxia and Su Qing admired Zhou Xuanji. They had all tested their talents, but compared to Zhou Xuanji, they were not even worth mentioning. When a person surpassed their own attitude, they couldn't even feel envious. The gap between them was just too big. Xian Xianghua didn't say anything, but her eyes were filled with admiration. Once, she protected Zhou Xuanji. Now, she looked up at Zhou Xuanji. The change in status and the widening of the gap didn't disappoint her. Instead, she enjoyed it. Which woman doesn't want to have a man she can rely on? No matter how determined a man was, he would occasionally want to have a warm family. Zhou Xuanji smiled and said, Everyone, pack up and prepare to depart. Everyone nodded and returned to their rooms. On that day, Zhou Xuanji and the others left under the warm send-off of the Longbow Divine Range. Old ancestor Longbow also shamelessly came to see them off. Tears streamed down his face as if he had lost his beloved. Half-truths and half-lies. His heart really ached. He was really embarrassed. After leaving the Longbow Divine Range, Ji Huanglin took out a small golden boat. It quickly expanded into a giant ship for them to land on. Rumble. The golden wheel suddenly tore through the universe and disappeared into the distance. It passed through the divine ranges as though it had teleported. On the massive ship, Zhou Xuanji and the others did not feel any discomfort. The old beggar exclaimed, This divine ship requires at least 100 million merit points, and it can withstand the attack of a Dao ancestor. The others were speechless. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. Should I buy such a divine ship too? If I offend a Dao ancestor in the future, I can still run away. He had 7 billion merit points. He could totally squander it. Ji Huanglin turned around and said with a smile, with Zhou Xuanji's talent, he can choose any divine ship like this in the Evil Sky Divine range. Not only that, but there are also divine clothes and countless treasures. There are only things that you can't imagine. 18-star aptitude was extremely rare even in the Kunlun origin court. After Beast Sovereign knew about it, he was overjoyed. His unhappiness with the longbow divine range disappeared instantly. He felt as though he had picked up a great bargain. He was extremely excited. He had already formulated a training plan for Zhou Xuanji. He wanted to train Zhou Xuanji personally. Even in the Evil Sky Divine range, there was only one 18-star genius. That genius had lived for countless years and had become one of the leaders of the Evil Sky Divine range. The golden ship was extremely fast. After about an hour, they arrived at the Evil Sky Divine range. The Evil Sky Divine range was hundreds of times bigger than the Longbow Divine range. They couldn't even see the top. After flying into the Evil Sky Divine range, they saw a magnificent world. The Golden Divine ship rose up without slowing down at all. Soon, they came to the top and landed on a wasteland. Wait here. I will take him to the range master first, Ji Huanglin said before leaving with Zhou Xuanji. After saying this, Ji Huanglin left with Zhou Xuanji and turned into a ray of golden light, disappearing into the horizon. Zhou Xuanji couldn't see anything because of his Dao energy. After a while, the golden light dissipated, and Zhou Xuanji landed on the ground. This was a brightly lit palace. The ceiling seemed to be inlaid with a bright sun. The temperature was very high. Creatures below the Saint Realm might not be able to bear it. Beast Sovereign was sitting on a crystal throne. After seeing Zhou Xuanji, he revealed a sinister smile. Ji Huanglin, get down, Beast Sovereign said slowly. Beast Sovereign said slowly. Hearing this, Ji Huanglin immediately disappeared. Zhou Xuanji walked up to him and cupped his fists. Thank you for your kindness, Beast Sovereign. Since he had come to the Evil Sky Divine range, Zhou Xuanji had to correct his attitude. He couldn't turn into Long Out Yen and tell Beast Sovereign what to do. If that happened, even if he had a 28-star aptitude, he would still die. This sovereign appreciates you very much. In the future, your ID card will be stamped with this sovereign's mark. If you encounter danger, take out your ID card. In addition, this sovereign will send someone to take you to choose your resources, Beast Sovereign said with a smile, staring at Zhou Xuanji. The more he looked at Zhou Xuanji, the more satisfied he was. The more he looked at Zhou Xuanji, the more satisfied he was. This kid was devilishly talented. His behavior was also very good. He was neither servile nor overbearing. He understood etiquette. Such a genius could go further. Before Beast Sovereign's rise, he was also like this. Only when he was strong enough could he do whatever he wanted. Thank you, Zhou Xuanji thanked him again. At the same time, he was looking forward to what kind of resources he would get. Beast Sovereign continued, your exterminating divine eyes have a very powerful origin. This sovereign can find one of the 5 ultimate gods to teach you. Zhou Xuanji suddenly thought of Barbaric Ultimate God and asked, can you save Barbaric Ultimate God? I am indebted to him for teaching me. With Beast Sovereign's ability, this shouldn't be difficult. Barbaric Ultimate God? It's a piece of cake. He will be your subordinate in the future. With your aptitude, he doesn't deserve to be your senior. Beast Sovereign shook his head with a smile. Beast Sovereign shook his head and smiled. He did not put Barbaric Ultimate God in his eyes at all. He paused for a moment before continuing, cultivate well. The Evil Sky Divine range will do its best to nurture you. But you have to repay the Evil Sky Divine range. Your first goal is to surpass and defeat Ing Zhuge. Chapter 702. Ing Zhuge? Zhou Xuanji was stunned. He couldn't help but ask, is the Evil Sky Divine range related to his divine range? In the superstar competition, Ing Zhuge left the deepest impression on him. How long would it take for him to catch up with such a powerful genius? The most important thing was that while he was cultivating, Ing Zhuge was also cultivating. Ing Zhuge was a 17-star genius and a super divine range. His cultivation speed was absolutely terrifying. Yes, the Evil Sky Divine range and the Emperor Divine range are mortal enemies. Every time there is a great elimination, The two sides will fight to the death. Now that you have joined the evil sky divine range, they will also target you in the future. So, this sovereign needs you to suppress Xueqi and rub the Emperor Divine Range's spirit. Beast Sovereign nodded. Beast Sovereign nodded. When he mentioned the Emperor Divine Veins, his expression turned a little cold. Xueqi could only say, I will try my best. Since he had joined the Evil Sky Divine Range, he should serve the Evil Sky Divine Range. Beast Sovereign flipped his right palm as a fist-sized red flower with green petals flew out and quickly arrived before Xueqi. This is an 80-million-year-old Bodhi flower. After taking it, it can strengthen your physique. Your cultivation has been growing very fast recently, making your body a little weak, Beast Sovereign explained. After Xueqi took the Bodhi flower, Beast Sovereign waved his right hand and sent him out before he could even thank him. Ji Huanglin was waiting outside the door. Seeing Xueqi fly out, he said, Let's go, I will take you to register your identity and collect the treasures in the blessed place. Xueqi nodded and put the Bodhi flower into the supreme storage. He swept his gaze around. This place looked very desolate. Thunderclouds were billowing. There were no weeds growing on the ground. The soil was a little moist. It was like a place where ghosts gathered. Under Ji Huanglin's lead, they came to a stone gate. Ji Huanglin swiped his ID card, and the stone gate immediately burst out with a colorful glow. They stepped through the stone gate and came to a bustling city in the blink of an eye. They were standing on a high platform that was 3,000 zhang above the ground. Buildings and pagodas stood in great numbers like mountains. Countless creatures were flying here and there. There were also many strange mounts and flying magical treasures. Heaven-shaking noises came from all directions. Xueqi could feel that the spiritual qi here was extremely majestic. It could even be compared to the space where the superstar sacred steel was located. As for the Longbow Divine Range, it couldn't be compared to this city. As far as the eye could see, the appearance of the giant city was incomparably magnificent and shocking. Ji Huanglin flew in a certain direction, and Xueqi followed closely behind. Along the way, the creatures that passed by first bowed to Ji Huanglin before looking at Xueqi. All of the creatures' first reaction was to be stunned. SSS. Xueqi. He's Xueqi. A man suddenly cried out in alarm. His voice was extremely loud, and it sounded like he had obtained an opportunity. Schwa. Countless gazes locked onto Xueqi from all directions. After the superstar competition, who could forget Xueqi's face? It's really him. Di Zun is mighty. He really managed to rope in this 18-star prodigy. Damn it. He made me penniless, but I still can't hate him. With Ji Huanglin leading the way personally, it seems that Sovereign Emperor wants to focus on nurturing Xueqi. Nonsense, 18-star aptitude, if it were you, wouldn't you nurture him? All sorts of discussions entered Xueqi's ears, but he was very calm and his expression did not change. He had experienced such scenes many times. Although it was not as impressive as this, he was already used to it. However, the Evil Sky Divine Range was indeed more enthusiastic than he had imagined. Half an hour later, Ji Huanglin brought Xueqi to a silver-white palace levitating in the air. There were many creatures walking along the corridors of the palace, and all of them were existences that Xueqi could not see through. They first came to a side hall. There were many wooden cabinets in the hall, and each of them was a flying artifact. They looked like models, and even the biggest one was not as tall as Xueqi. You can pick any artifact here. All of them are flying artifacts that can be controlled with spirit stones. You don't have to use your Tao energy to control them, Ji Huanglin introduced. Ji Huanglin introduced, and Xueqi nodded. He immediately wandered around the hall. Since he was going to choose, he would choose the highest and most expensive one. Each artifact had a wooden plate in front of it, with a price tag. The lowest one needed 50 million merit points, which made him sigh in amazement in his heart. The gap between divine ranges was really huge. Soon, he came to a phoenix carriage. The carriage looked like it was made of gold. It was resplendent and noble. It was pulled by 3 fire phoenixes, and 2 fire cheilants were beside it. They were flapping their wings and galloping on the spot like living spirits. The price was 1.3 billion merit points. This was much more expensive than Ji Huanglin's golden wheel. This is the Tri-Phoenix Cheilin carriage. These 5 gods all have the cultivation of 9 vast heavens. As your cultivation grows, they will continue to grow stronger. This is the only one in the entire evil sky divine range, and it has just been built. You came at the right time. If it were someone else, no matter how many merit points they had, they would not be able to buy it. Ji Huanglin walked up to Zhou Xuanji and introduced it to him. There was a trace of envy in his tone. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow and said, "Then I want it." Ji Huanglin nodded before waving at a middle-aged man not far away. As expected, everyone here knew Zhou Xuanji. Beast Sovereign had already ordered that no matter what Zhou Xuanji chose, they would give it to him directly. Of course, he could only choose one treasure of any type. And so, Zhou Xuanji obtained the Tri-Phoenix Qilin carriage and sealed it in a scroll. Ji Huanglin told him that it would be best to let the Tri-Phoenix Qilin carriage recognize him as its owner after breaking through to Dao Ancestor. Zhou Xuanji couldn't help but feel a little disappointed after hearing this. Such an eye-catching treasure had to be hidden for a while longer. However, once the Tri-Phoenix Qilin carriage recognized him as its owner, it would be equivalent to having 5 pets with a cultivation of 9 vast heavens. Just thinking about it made him excited. Next was the selection of the Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands. They were also selected in a palace. Each Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands were marked with their grades and prices. There was also a general introduction. With a sweep of his divine sense, he could look down at the Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands. In the end, Zhou Xuanji chose a Grotto Heavens and Blessed Land called Pure Sword Heaven. It was an extremely vast and independent world. The spiritual qi there was also top-notch in the Evil Sky Divine Range. Ji Huanglin, who was leading the way, suddenly felt tormented. This kid's appetite is really big. He didn't keep a low profile at all. He chose the best. After that, Zhou Xuanji chose a divine robe worth 1 billion merit points. It was called the Purple Sky Stardust Robe. It could automatically adjust to the size of one's body. It contained restrictions that could resist fatal attacks, avoid the damage of space-time electric currents, and even transcend tribulations. It had many functions. After Zhou Xuanji put it on, his entire temperament suddenly changed. Coupled with his purple eyes, he looked like a divine lord. He was majestic, handsome, domineering, and confident. When he stood next to Ji Huanglin, people could feel that his aura wasn't weak at all. It was even slightly stronger. Ji Huanglin didn't have such an expensive divine robe. Even if he had so many merit points, he was reluctant to squander them. Clothes make the man. As soon as Zhou Xuanji came to the Evil Sky Divine Range, he became rich instantly. He was in a great mood. Chapter 703. After getting the Tri-Phoenix Qilin carriage, Pure Sword Heaven, and the Purple Sky Stardust Robe, Zhou Xuanji was very satisfied. However, the surprise was not over yet. Ji Huanglin took him to continue picking boots, crowns, servants, and so on. Beast Sovereign was completely considerate of him in all aspects. He had never imagined such treatment before. He was only protected in the Longbow Divine Range and received a few merit points. Looking at the Evil Sky Divine Range, they were very generous, showing the bearing of a super divine range. Zhou Xuanji's identity medallion was also transformed into the identity medallion of the Evil Sky Divine Range. The identity medallions of different divine ranges were different to indicate their identity. If they were the same, there would definitely be a fight. After half a day, Zhou Xuanji returned to the golden ship with a rich harvest. Next they were going to Pure Sword Heaven. Master, how was it? What did they give you? Qiuhu asked curiously with a face full of expectation. The more generous Zhou Xuanji's treatment was, the more comfortable they would be. The old beggar nodded and said, "You can see how much the Evil Sky Divine Range values you now." Before Zhou Xuanji could speak, Ji Huanglin shook his head and said, "Don't ask, you will know soon." His tone was filled with helplessness. These guys didn't seem to know what 18-star aptitude meant. Any divine range would vigorously cultivate them and even have the opportunity to sit on the position of Range Master. Beast Sovereign used to have 18-star aptitude. He was recruited by the Evil Sky Divine Range and took over the Evil Sky Divine Range after becoming powerful. He was now looking for an inheritor. Divine ranges were like this. The position of Range Master wasn't the best. After a long time, One would get bored and want to rest. How many things did a divine range need to consult the range master? No matter how great one's ambition was, it would be worn down by time. Especially for super divine ranges like them, they had a solid foundation. There wouldn't be too much trouble, and it would be difficult to shake other super divine ranges. Next, the golden ship set sail for pure sword heaven. Everyone was very curious about their next destination. Xian Xianghua couldn't help but ask Zhou Xuanji telepathically. Zhou Xuanji didn't hide anything from her. He told her everything he had obtained, which made her eyes widen. Putting aside pure sword heaven, the treasures Zhou Xuanji obtained added up to more than 5 billion merit points. After all, she had been in the longbow divine range before. She knew how huge this number was. It seemed that the evil sky divine range really regarded Zhou Xuanji as a treasure. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they came to a vast ocean, and Ji Huanglin asked Zhou Xuanji to take out the pure sword heaven token. Pour your Dao power into it and shoot it forward to create an entrance to the barrier. Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji did as he was told. Soon, a hole that was dozens of feet wide appeared in front of him, looking like a whirlpool. The golden divine ship sailed into it, and they arrived at a vast and majestic world. The blue sky and blue sea stretched as far as the eye could see, and the spiritual energy was extremely abundant. There were many creatures here, but none of them had developed intelligence. They were like animals in the mortal world. The golden divine ship continued forward, bringing them around pure sword heaven. This world will belong to Zhou Xuanji from now on. This is definitely the most top-notch grotto heaven in the evil sky divine range. You can only enter with Zhou Xuanji's permission. Otherwise you will be killed without mercy. You guys who follow him are really blessed. Ji Huanglin introduced with a smile. Even his blessed lands were not as high-grade as Zhou Xuanji's. Although he was envious, he was not jealous. He had always had the dream of becoming the lord of the evil sky divine range. Zhou Xuanji was of the same generation as him. Zhou Xuanji might become his right-hand man in the future. He did not want Zhou Xuanji to grow too slowly. Qiu Hu, Shang Tiandao, the old beggar, Si Mingyan, Su Qing, barbarian god Huang Luo, and the others were all dumbfounded. Such dense spiritual qi and such a huge world all belonged to Zhou Xuanji alone? Those who were brought by Xian Xianghua from the demon realm were trembling with excitement. Their realm lord's man was so favored. Their status would surely rise as well. After wandering around for a while, Ji Huanglin moved them out and said to Zhou Xuanji, "Those servants will come in a few days. At the same time, they will assign you a maidservant in charge. You can look for her if you need anything. You can trust her completely. This maidservant has been cursed. If she dares to disobey the master or the evil sky divine range, she will be destroyed by the heavens." After that, Ji Huanglin left quickly on the golden divine ship. Xian Xianghua looked at Zhou Xuanji and said meaningfully, "Lang Jun, it seems like you are blessed to have a maidservant to serve you." Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes at her and didn't bother to reply. Next, they began to choose a place to stay. Zhou Xuanji naturally wanted the most precious place. And so, everyone dispersed. Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua came to the highest peak. The spiritual qi here was the densest. The entire mountain was planted with all kinds of treasures. "Are you going to move Emperor Sword Court next?" Xian Xianghua asked. Although pure sword heaven was huge, it would be consumed sooner or later if a force was allowed to take root. It was also easy for disputes to arise. The evil sky divine range gave him pure sword heaven because they hoped that he could cultivate in peace and not waste time on other things. Zhou Xuanji said, "They can't withstand such spiritual qi. They need to have at least connecting heaven level 10 cultivation to be qualified to come here. Moreover, developing here is not a good thing. If Beast Sovereign hears about it, what will he think?" There were countless forces under the divine range, but most of them were scattered at the bottom of the divine range, at the edge, or in the Kunlun universe. In terms of the number of living creatures, the divine range was strictly controlled to prevent enemies from sneaking in or to make the divine range lose balance. Xian Xianghua nodded. Zhou Xuanji immediately sat down and began cultivating. Xian Xianghua, on the other hand, built a building nearby. The old beggar, Qiu Hu, and the others also found their own places to settle down. They were far away from each other, not wanting to disturb each other. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. A group of creatures exuding powerful auras flew over from the horizon and arrived above the mountain where Zhou Xuanji and Xian Xianghua lived. The leader was a woman in red. She had a beautiful face and a graceful figure. Her temperament seemed a little cold. She was dressed very nobly. The creatures behind her were divided into 2 groups of men and women. There were 3,000 of them each, and all of them looked expectant. They were naturally curious about Zhou Xuanji, who had been in the limelight recently. This slave, Chang Xian, has brought 6,000 slaves to greet the Lord, the woman in red said with cupped fists. The woman in red cupped her fists and said respectfully. Zhou Xuanji's voice came. Come here. Upon hearing this, Chang Xian immediately came over to Zhou Xuanji. Zhou Xuanji, who was sitting on a boulder cultivating, looked at her and asked, What's your cultivation? Chang Xian, kneeling in the air, replied, 3 vast heavens cultivation. Those slaves are in the saint realm. They are responsible for taking care of pure sword heaven. 3 vast heavens? Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. Such an expert is his maid? 9 vast heavens was just a general term for a realm. It was divided into 1st vast heavens, 2nd vast heavens, 3 vast heavens and so on. The strongest was 9 vast heavens. Chapter 704. While Zhou Xuanji was observing Chang Xian was also secretly observing Zhou Xuanji. She had also watched the superstar competition. Zhou Xuanji had left a deep impression on her. When she knew that she was going to be Zhou Xuanji's maidservant in charge of matters, she was pleasantly surprised. A woman like her would eventually be attached to a prodigy of the evil sky divine range. None of the maidservants had ever left the divine range. They had never even been to the origin city. They had always been gathered together to cultivate and learn all kinds of knowledge. At the same time, they had to maintain their purity so that their future master wouldn't dislike them. It was Chang Xian's first time going out, so she was very nervous. She could only pretend to be calm and indifferent. Xian Xianghua appeared not far away and looked at Chang Xian. Chang Xian understood that she was Zhou Xuanji's woman, so she respectfully saluted. In the future, I'll leave the trivial matters of pure sword heaven to you. My subordinates are also in pure sword heaven. You can go and get to know them to avoid future misunderstandings. Take the servants to make arrangements. Don't disturb me unless I have instructions. Zhou Xuanji nodded. He was very satisfied with Chang Xian. At least this woman was pleasing to the eye. Understood. Chang Xian immediately left and arranged for 6,000 slaves to settle down. Zhou Xuanji did not think too much and closed his eyes to cultivate. After everything settled down, he prepared to go into seclusion to cultivate. Xian Xianghua shook her head and smiled. She also found a place to cultivate. The news that Zhou Xuanji had entered the evil sky divine range spread like wildfire in the divine range. The resources that he had obtained were even hotly discussed by countless creatures. Di Zun really put in a lot of effort. As the range master, it was impossible for Sovereign to use all the resources of the entire divine range. After all, there were many old immortals behind the scenes. Each of them had their own power and resources. Zhou Xuanji's divine range access was so rich. Naturally, it was Sovereign who paid for it. No matter what, Zhou Xuanji was the most famous person in the evil sky divine range. Everyone knew about him. The news spread further and further, and it even spread to the other divine ranges and origin cities, becoming the topic of conversation for countless living beings. In the blink of an eye. Half a year passed quickly. Ji Huanglin came to visit again. He was carrying a cage with barbaric ultimate god inside. It was curled up like a docile black cat, looking very cute. Seeing barbaric ultimate god, Zhou Xuanji wanted to laugh. He said, "Don't pretend to be asleep. Isn't it better to escape with your life?" Having heard this, barbaric ultimate god opened his eyes awkwardly, but he still did not dare to look into Zhou Xuanji's eyes. Although it placed its hopes on Zhou Xuanji to escape, it did not want to become his subordinate. When it heard this news, it was as if it had been struck by lightning. First it was ecstatic, then it collapsed. It couldn't believe that Zhou Xuanji had so much power to make beast sovereigns speak in person. Later, it learned from the powerful cultivator who escorted it that Xueqi had won the first place in the superstar competition 3 times and was tested to have 18-star aptitude. 18-star. It almost wanted to curse the heavens. On what basis did this kid attain 18-star aptitude? It had been a torturous journey for it. It was too painful. Humph, hurry up and call me master. Ji Huanglin snorted coldly, which made Xueqi want to laugh. Barbaric ultimate god seemed to have suffered a lot. He said weakly, "Master." Xueqi nodded and said to Ji Huanglin, "Many thanks." In just half a year, the barbaric ultimate god had been sent to him. Beast Sovereign was really powerful. After all, the barbaric ultimate god had a special identity and was suppressed in the Great Elimination. How many connections did he have to go through? It's a piece of cake. Let's start the master recognition and seal it, lest this guy offends his superior. Ji Huanglin took out a white talisman with red characters and handed it to Xueqi. Barbaric ultimate god heaved a heavy sigh. It was extremely uncomfortable. It felt even more uncomfortable when it remembered that it had dug out Xueqi's heart. In the future, it would definitely have a dark time under Xueqi's control. Under Ji Huanglin's guidance, Xueqi integrated the white talisman into his body and established some kind of connection with the barbaric ultimate god. He felt that he could make the barbaric ultimate god suffer a fate worse than death with just a thought. He could even kill it directly. This feeling was too good. He couldn't help but smile when he recalled how arrogant the barbaric ultimate god was. Seeing his smile, barbaric ultimate god felt ashamed. After that, Xueqi and Ji Huanglin exchanged some pleasantries before Ji Huanglin left. Xueqi introduced the barbaric ultimate god to Xian Xianghua and Chang Xian. He also told the barbaric ultimate god not to hurt any creature here. The barbaric ultimate god had been cursed. How could it dare to court death? If it hadn't dug out its heart, it would have dared to be mischievous. But now, it could only admit defeat. Chang Xian was very surprised after learning the identity of the barbaric ultimate god. After all, she was born and raised in the Kunlun origin court. Naturally, she had heard of the myths and legends of the 5 ultimate gods. She didn't expect that such a person was still alive and had become Xueqi's slave. She was excited about this. Beast Sovereign was really going to support Xueqi. She would be Xueqi's woman for the rest of her life. The stronger Xueqi was, the better she could live. At this point, the barbaric ultimate god joined the pure sword heaven. Xueqi would ask it for the greatly divine suppressor technique when he wasn't cultivating. In order to please Xueqi, barbaric ultimate god also did its best. 20 years passed. During this time, Xueqi broke through to the 3rd level of the greatly divine suppressor technique. The number of greatly avatars had reached 2,370. This was all thanks to the barbaric ultimate god's dedicated cultivation. The barbaric ultimate god was also very surprised. The current Xueqi was like a completely different person. His cultivation talent was really terrifying. Not only him, but Xueqi also noticed it. When he was cultivating in the past, his cultivation speed was not this fast. At first, he thought it was because of the pure sword heaven, but later he realized that it was not the case. His aptitude had indeed increased. He suspected that it had something to do with the great Tao tempering pool. Otherwise, why would he have such a sudden change? Other than that, he couldn't think of any other possibilities. He was very close to becoming a late-stage Tao-treading saint. No wonder the cultivation of those geniuses was so terrifying. The spiritual qi and Tao power of the super-divine range were really abnormal. Ever since he came to pure sword heaven, he felt that he was close to becoming a Tao ancestor. Xian Xianghua, Qiu Hu, and the others were also cultivating diligently. They did not leave pure sword heaven. On this day, Xueqi was awakened by the mark on the ID medallion. He opened his eyes and took out the medallion. "Brother Zhou, our Xian Mao's next mission is about to begin. Are you free?" Yi Jun's voice came from the identity token. Although he was laughing, his laughter was a little uneasy and not as carefree as it used to be. The current Xueqi was enough to make him revere him. Xueqi replied, "Any time. Give me a time." After cultivating for so long, he needed to test his strength. It was not a good thing to keep cultivating blindly. "Very well. Then I will confirm it in a month. Go early and come back early. Don't worry, the rewards of this mission will not disappoint you, Yijun said excitedly. Yijun said excitedly. Zhou Xuanji nodded in response, and the conversation ended. Zhou Xuanji took back his ID medallion with a look of anticipation. After cultivating for 20 years, it was time to show off. I have countless legendary swords. I have countless legendary swords. Chapter 705. 1 month later. Zhou Xuanji left Pure Sword Heaven and headed for the origin city near the Evil Sky Divine Range alone. No one stopped him, but he could feel several divine senses scanning him. Although the Kunlun Origin Court was safe, Beast Sovereign was still worried that something would happen to him. Even if he was worried, Beast Sovereign would not stop him. Even the strongest prodigy had to go through the baptism of battle. After coming to an unfamiliar origin city, Zhou Xuanji asked around and found out where the Vocation Palace was. His appearance caused a commotion in Fengyuan City. All the living beings in this origin city came from the nearby Great Divine Ranges. They were powerful, but they were still very excited and curious to see Zhou Xuanji. This year's superstar competition had made Zhou Xuanji successful. Later, it was revealed that he had 18-star aptitude, which meant that he had more potential than Ing Zhuge. Zhou Xuanji evaded along the way and finally came to the Vocation Palace. He found the side hall of the Void Boundary War God and teleported to the Void Boundary Hall. He wasn't on the first floor, but on the 98th floor. He went straight up. Different origin cities had different teleportation locations. Generally speaking, the stronger the origin city, the higher the teleportation array in the Void Boundary Palace. Soon, he arrived in front of the tower where Emperor Zhen Yan was. Nangong Jiayin, Yi Jun, Su Huang, and the others had been waiting for a long time. Seeing him walk over, Shen Mao's Dao lords came up to congratulate Zhou Xuanji. Now, Zhou Xuanji was already above them. When they heard that Zhou Xuanji had obtained a massive amount of resources from the Evil Sky Divine Range, although they were envious, they didn't dare to have any ill intentions. If they dared to plot against Zhou Xuanji, the Evil Sky Divine Range would surely kill them at all costs. This was also the reason why the Evil Sky Divine Range spread the news of Zhou Xuanji's treatment. They wanted to tell the Kunlun Origin Court how much they cared about Zhou Xuanji. All right, enough with the pleasantries. You'll have plenty of opportunities later. Come here, I'll explain the details of this mission. This mission involves a divine range, so I can't let you go rashly. Emperor Zhen Yan said, drawing everyone to him. This task is to capture a Dao-treading venerable. Although his strength is not strong, he used to be from the Emperor Divine Range. The Emperor Divine Range has never put him on the wanted list. The Void Boundary Palace suspects that the Emperor Divine Range wants to protect that guy. After all, that guy has the soul of an ancient giant demon in his body. Heavenly Sage Zhen Yan talked endlessly, making Zhou Xuanji raise his brow. The Emperor's divine veins? He suddenly felt that there was something fishy about this matter. Could it be that this was arranged by Beast Sovereign? Otherwise, it wouldn't be so coincidental that he didn't encounter any questioning from the Evil Sky Divine Range along the way. It seemed like they wanted to test how he would react when facing the Emperor's Divine Range. After all, the Evil Sky Divine Range and the Emperor Divine Range were mortal enemies. The target's name was Xueqi. He had a special bloodline and a 17-star aptitude. However, he could easily lose control. After Heavenly Venerable Zhen Yan handed over the task, Shen Mao left through the space-time tunnel. Brother Zhou, this divine robe of yours is not simple, right? Yi Jun said in amazement as he looked at Zhou Xuanji's purple sky stardust robe. His tone was filled with envy. It was the same for the others. Zhou Xuanji shook his head with a smile and said, "It's a gift from the divine range. I can't afford the clothes you are wearing." A Dao ancestor asked about the price of the purple sky stardust robe out of curiosity. After hearing Zhou Xuanji's answer, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed like the rumors were true. Zhou Xuanji received resources worth more than 5 billion merit points on the first day. He joined the Evil Sky Divine Range. Nangong Jiayin said with a smile, "Brother Zhou, you've soared to the sky this time. Don't turn against us in the future." The others teased him as well. Unknowingly, their attitudes were lower than before. I only treat people based on feelings, not identity, Xueqi said, shaking his head. He had a good impression of Xian Mao. At least, they had never had any conflicts. They were united during missions and were highly efficient. The group chatted as they headed toward the universe where Xueqi was. That universe was a high-level universe, but the previous overlord was destroyed by a divine range. Now the universe was in chaos. Xueqi thought that he could hide there to avoid the disaster, but it was a pity that he underestimated the Void Boundary Palace's intelligence capabilities. Even without spies, the Void Boundary Palace could divine it. It was extremely horrifying. There was no danger along the way. 3 days later, they came to the target universe. Su Huang, bring the 6 of them to gather intelligence. We will wait here, Yi Jun instructed. Having heard him, Su Huang and the other 6 Dao ancestors nodded, and they left quickly. This mission involved the Emperor Divine Range, so they had to be careful. Xueqi immediately sat down in the void and began cultivating. Seeing how diligent he was, the others looked at each other in dismay. All sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts. The more talented a prodigy was, the more they would risk their lives to cultivate. Nangong Jiayin asked Yi Jun. There is news that Zhuge may come. If we meet him, we must escape, especially Xueqi. We must save him even if we risk being imprisoned. Yi Jun nodded. The other Dao fathers had no objections either. If they were captured, they still had a chance to live. But if Xueqi was captured, the evil Sky Divine Range would surely not let them off. Super Divine Ranges were all very domineering. Xueqi heard their conversation but did not open his eyes. This was the reality. Even if he pretended to refuse, it was useless. Xian Mao wasn't giving him face. He was just afraid of the evil Sky Divine Range. In the blink of an eye. 7 days later, Su Huang and the others came back one after another. 2 of them were still injured. There were many native powerhouses in this universe, and the strongest among them could reach the 9 vast heavens realm. There are indeed traces of the Emperor's divine pulse. Xueqi's information has been blocked, so we can't get any information. However, there is good news. Aside from us, there are other teams of Void Boundary War Gods who came here for a mission. Maybe we can join forces with them. Su Huang said with a solemn expression, which made Yi Jun frown. The mission target was only 1 person. If they joined forces with other teams, they would have to fight in the end. But fighting with Void Boundary War Gods was better than offending the Emperor's divine range. Yi Jun looked at Xueqi thoughtfully. Maybe he could use Xueqi to intimidate the other Void Boundary War Gods. Sure. After we complete the mission, if there are other teams competing with us, we will use Xueqi to repel them, Yi Jun said. After that, he looked at Xueqi and asked, Brother Zhou, do you mind? Xueqi replied without opening his eyes, I don't mind. With such a powerful backer, how could he not make use of it? Moreover, the more powerful he was, the more prestigious the evil Sky Divine Range would be. This was not Wanshan Great Thousand. The evil Sky Divine Range's status was much higher than the Divine Cliffs. Even the top-ranked Super Divine Ranges would find it difficult to destroy the evil Sky Divine Range. The group heard him and became excited. They began to discuss the plan. A while later, Xueqi opened his eyes suddenly. His purple pupils looked extremely evil. Someone is coming, he said with a deep voice. His exterminating divine eyes were extremely perceptive, so he discovered the situation before Yi Jun and the others. Having heard him, the group immediately took out their enchanted artifacts and prepared for battle. A stream of rainbow light came from the depths of the universe. Its aura was so powerful that it shook the space. Chapter 706. The newcomer was a muscular man wearing a black cloak with dragon scales. He had a dragon head and a human body. Sharp claws grew out of his sleeves like razor-sharp daggers. He looked at Xian Mao and the others and stopped less than 100 meters away from them. Xueqi, I didn't expect you to come too. Aren't you afraid that the Emperor Divine Range will attack you? The dragon-headed man asked with a cold smile as he locked his eyes on Xueqi. Yi Jun asked with a deep voice. Who are you? Tell me your name. You can call me Dao Guardian Dragon. I'm here to ask for your help to expel the Emperor Divine Range. the dragon-headed man replied as he looked at everyone. He frowned slightly but soon relaxed. Dao Guardian Dragon. Yi Jun and the others' expressions changed. Su Huang asked with squinted eyes, Dao Guardian Dragons are distributed in every high-level universe? Zhou Xuanji was curious. What was the origin of the Dao Guardian Dragon? That's right. We are determined to protect the peace of the universe. The Emperor Divine Range is shameless to act in the dark. That's why we asked the Evil Sky Divine Range for help. Because of this, you received this mission. I'm here to receive you, the Dao Guardian Dragon said. Most of the time, he was looking at Zhou Xuanji. Apparently, the Evil Sky Divine Range had instructed him. Zhou Xuanji could sense the kindness in his eyes. The Evil Sky Divine Range's arrangement? No wonder we can receive such high-level missions. Yi Jun frowned and mumbled to himself. The other Dao ancestors' expressions changed too. They immediately understood that they were being used. They looked at Zhou Xuanji instinctively. Zhou Xuanji could only shake his head and shrug. He really did not know. It was the Evil Sky Divine Range's arrangement indeed. What a schemer. Not only did they give him the opportunity to train, but they also had all sorts of methods to ensure his survival. All right, come with me. The Dao Guardian Dragon waved his hand and flew in another direction. Xian Mao and the others could only follow. Along the way, the Dao Guardian Dragon introduced the Emperor Divine Range's situation in this universe. Until now, the Emperor Divine Range had become more and more rampant. They had begun to travel the universe openly in search of Xueqi. It was not a big deal for a divine range to conquer a universe in the Kunlun origin court. But there were always some divine ranges that advocated peace. They worked together to protect the universe, and the Dao Guardian Dragon was one of them. No matter where it was, justice would always have the upper hand in public opinion. This was especially so for high-class cosmoses. The god ranges wouldn't dare to attack them easily. Strange. Since Xueqi is from the Emperor's divine range, why is he hiding? A Dao ancestor asked curiously, afraid that there was a trap. The Dao Guardian Dragon answered, it should have something to do with personal hatred. It seems like Xueqi's family was killed by the geniuses of the Emperor Divine Range. That is why he awakened. Such things were not uncommon in the divine ranges. Only geniuses like Zhou Xuanji, who were heavily nurtured by the divine range and no one dared to offend them, could they cultivate without any worries. The Dao Guardian Dragon received information about Xueqi and was saved by a race. If he wanted to capture Xueqi, he had to first gain the trust of that race. This was suspected of deception. But there was no other way. Only by handing over Xueqi would the universe be at peace, and the Emperor's divine range would leave. Zhou Xuanji did not feel much about this. He did not speak and followed the group silently. 2 days later, they descended upon a great world and saw a group of strange creatures with deer heads and human bodies. They all looked rather old. The Dao Guardian Dragon was in charge of communication. Zhou Xuanji could not understand what they were saying, so he waited in boredom. After some negotiation, the Dao Guardian Dragon and Yi Jun left with them. Zhou Xuanji and the others stayed behind to wait for their return. Everyone, stay alert. A battle might break out at any time. Su Huang reminded them as he looked around vigilantly. The scenery of this great world was beautiful and picturesque. But at this moment, their eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Dao Guardian Dragon said that the people of the Emperor Divine Range might be hiding in every corner. Half a day later, Yi Jun and the Dao Guardian Dragon flew over with a pale-faced young man in ragged clothes. It was Xueqi. He looked mentally exhausted as though he had been tortured. The mission is so easy? Nangong Zhaoyin asked with a raised brow. She felt that something was not right. The previous mission seemed easy, but Dao Hu Qiuzuan appeared, which almost scared them to death. Yi Jun shook his head and said, the next part is the most difficult. Once this brat leaves this great world, the Emperor Divine Range will come after him. Zhou Xuanji sized up Xueqi. This brat's eyes were lifeless, as though his heart had already died. He was curious what kind of soul this brat was hiding, for 2 super divine ranges to fight over. Let's leave as soon as possible. The Dao Guardian Dragon muttered and looked toward Zhou Xuanji again. Although he was worried about Zhou Xuanji's safety, he was not frustrated. Instead, he looked forward to it. He had seen Zhou Xuanji's performance in the superstar competition and felt that this brat had many tricks up his sleeves. He might bring them unusual hope. Su Huang took out a jade disc and said, "Everyone come up." Shortly after, he stored everyone into the jade disc and merged with it. They turned into a stream of green light and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. In the jade disc, the Tao Guardian Dragon continued to tell them about the powerful cultivators of the Emperor Divine range. The group listened attentively. Zhou Xuanji was most concerned about Ying Zhuge. Ying Zhuge was probably sent here to deal with him. Zhou Xuanji was no match for Ying Zhuge now. But if they were to fight, he would not back down. Boom! The jade disc suddenly shook violently, startling everyone. "Tsk, where are you going?" A mocking laughter came from the outside. Su Huang immediately cast a spell to stabilize the jade disc. Yi Jun and the others took out their enchanted artifacts and cast their divine abilities. Their Tao energy penetrated the jade disc and swept outward. Xueqi mumbled, "Fate. We can't escape from the past after all." No one paid any attention to him. Everyone was tense. Zhou Xuanji was also prepared for battle. Once he activated the sword fusion technique and the 9-soul fusion technique, his power would increase tremendously. Together with the Great Li Avatar, he had a high chance of escaping. Bum! 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 The jade disc shook violently as though it would crack at any moment. The Tao Guardian Dragon gritted his teeth and said, "This is bad. I sense the aura of the fourth vast heaven. It might be Ying Zhuge." His cultivation was only at the first vast heaven, so he was no match for Ying Zhuge. Yi Jun and the others became even more anxious. They were only Tao ancestors, so it was impossible for them to defeat Ying Zhuge. Even if they worked together, they would not be able to defeat Ying Zhuge with just one hand. "You escape with him." Yi Jun suddenly looked at Zhou Xuanji and cried out with a deep voice. Next, he took out a rosewood door. After he opened the door, it was pitch black inside. Zhou Xuanji did not hesitate and entered the door with Xueqi. The Tao Guardian Dragon heaved a sigh of relief and gave a strange smile. Nangong Jiayin dashed into the rosewood door suddenly, which shocked Yi Jun. Chapter 707. Carrying Xueqi, Zhou Xuanji and Nangong Jiayin shuttled through the dark void. "Looks like this is a conspiracy." Nangong Jiayin sighed, her expression quite unsightly. Zhou Xuanji looked at her and asked, "Why do you say that?" Nangong Jiayin sighed and said, "The Tao Guardian Dragon meant that the evil Sky Divine Range sent you here to gain experience. But now, Yi Jun directly told you to run away, and the Tao Guardian Dragon didn't even stop you. What do you think?" Having heard this, Zhou Xuanji felt that it was reasonable. Had the Tao Guardian Dragon been bribed? No. The look in his eyes earlier shouldn't be able to fool anyone. Or had Yi Jun been bribed? That wasn't right either. Yi Jun had no reason to harm him. Even if he was bribed by other super divine ranges, he wouldn't dare to do so. The evil Sky Divine Range was so powerful that Yi Jun dared to provoke it? Zhou Xuanji frowned. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. It's not the Emperor's divine range. It's old demon Soul Mover. He's already controlling the people of the Emperor's divine range. Even your companions are being subconsciously controlled. Xueqi spoke suddenly. With this, Zhou Xuanji shuddered. The terror of old demon Soul Mover was still fresh in his mind. In the superstar competition, if it weren't for Origin Court War God, these geniuses would have died. Old demon Soul Mover's aura was too terrifying. Nangong Jiayin was also frightened. She knew more about the terrifying legends of Old Demon Soul Mover. She shuddered at the thought of Old Demon Soul Mover. For some reason, they felt as if a pair of eyes were spying on them. This feeling was extremely uncomfortable. No. If it really is Old Demon Soul Mover, we won't be able to escape through the space-time tunnel. Nangong Jiayin gritted her teeth, her eyes full of fear. Zhou Xuanji frowned and thought about how to escape. At this moment, a giant hand flew over from the darkness in front of them and grabbed the three of them. Zhou Xuanji's vision darkened. He felt that his body was being squeezed, as though he would be crushed at any moment. Old Demon Soul Mover. Zhou Xuanji gritted his teeth and immediately used the 9-soul fusion technique and sword fusion technique. He wanted to resist, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. It's over. There was a loud bang. He felt the explosion of the giant hand, which almost killed him. Then he fell to the ground. When he opened his eyes, he found that he had landed on a barren land with Nangong Jiayin and Xueqi lying next to him. The two of them did not die, but they were injured to varying degrees. They crawled up one after another. This is... Nangong Jiayin's beautiful eyes widened and her body began to tremble. Zhou Xuanji's expression changed as well. This was because they had landed on a huge palm. At the end of the horizon, there were 4 fingers that seemed to reach the sky. He subconsciously looked to the side, and there was indeed a thumb. Zhou Xuanji immediately turned around and saw old demon Soulmover's horrifying face. That pair of eyes were numb and cold, enough to scare everyone to death. Nangong Jiayin and Xueqi hurriedly retreated in fear. They didn't dare to make a sound. Old demon Soulmover didn't say anything either. He just looked at them quietly. This was a dark void, which made the environment even more eerie. Zhou Xuanji could sense old demon Soulmover staring at him. It was like a child looking at an ant under his feet, curious but not complicated. However, for ants, this kind of gaze was extremely terrifying. Even if they were to be trampled to death, it would only be because of the other party's naivety and pure curiosity. After a long while, old demon Soulmover didn't say a word and just looked at Zhou Xuanji coldly. Zhou Xuanji couldn't stand it anymore. What do you want? Just say it. Zhou Xuanji said with a deep voice. It was not that he was courting death, but it was too torturous. Live or die. Just give me a straightforward answer. Xueqi looked at him with a strange expression. Is this brat tired of living? Oh no. The geniuses of the super divine ranges were all like this. Arrogant and stupid. Nangong Jiayin was extremely nervous. She didn't dare to move or even breathe loudly. She kept sending telepathic messages to Zhou Xuanji, asking him to shut up. Zhou Xuanji ignored her and looked at old demon Soulmover fearlessly. Old demon Soulmover said suddenly, "There's something in your body. It's very mysterious. I can't see through it, and at the same time, it makes me feel very dangerous." Zhou Xuanji heard him and frowned. What is it? He couldn't help but think of the supreme legendary sword system. Other than the serendipity of the world's beginning, what else could make old demon Soulmover so fearful? The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Brat, how about you be my pet? Or else, I will eat them. Old demon Soulmover looked down at Zhou Xuanji and said word by word. The word eat made Nangong Jiayin and Xueqi shudder. What's the end of being your pet? Zhou Xuanji asked. He was waiting. As long as Beast Sovereign sensed that something was wrong with him, he would surely come to save him. Although old demon Soulmover was powerful, Beast Sovereign might not be afraid of him. It depends on your performance. I need you to be my pet to fight against the pets of other old demons. As long as you can win, I will let you live. Otherwise, I will extract your soul and make you wish you were dead. Old demon Soulmover said in a cold voice. Old demon Soulmover said coldly. His expression didn't change at all when he said this. It was because his expression didn't change that he looked extremely terrifying. Zhou Xuanji fell into silence. He didn't know what to say. Suddenly, a giant mountain rose behind old demon Soulmover. Countless creatures and souls were still buried there, struggling silently. Okay. Zhou Xuanji said calmly. He had no other choice. He could feel old demon Soulmover's murderous aura. It was like a stormy sea, soul-stirring. Old demon Soulmover grinned and flew forward. Zhou Xuanji looked back at Nangong Jiayin and asked, "Are you okay?" As for Xueqi, he didn't care. What should we do? Didn't the evil Sky Divine Range leave you a way to contact him? Nangong Jiayin asked telepathically. She didn't want Zhou Xuanji to die here. Becoming old demon Soulmover's pet was absolutely miserable. Zhou Xuanji shook his head. If there was a way, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Xueqi sighed and said, "This is fate. I'm destined to be unlucky. You want to capture me, so you deserve to be stained with karma." Nangong Jiayin walked up to Zhou Xuanji and looked at old demon Soulmover. She gritted her teeth and said, "Senior, what do you want to let us go?" If you want that brat, we can give him to you. Old Demon Soul Mover ignored her, which made her even more anxious. She didn't believe Old Demon Soul Mover's nonsense. Zhou Xuanji would definitely die in his hands, followed by her. Zhou Xuanji said, "Forget it. If we anger him, we will die now." Nangong Jiaoyin's face was filled with despair. "Humph! You old demon, you think you can touch the genius of the evil sky divine range?" A cold snort came. Zhou Xuanji raised his brow. Just when he was about to speak, a mysterious force teleported the three of them away. In the next second, Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and saw Beast Sovereign standing in front of him with his back facing him. Nangong Jiaoyin was stunned. She instinctively wanted to pull Zhou Xuanji back. "Thank you, Beast Sovereign, for helping us." Zhou Xuanji cupped his fist and bowed. He heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, he had a powerful backer. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 708. Who is he? Nangong Jiaoyin asked softly. Beast Sovereign's spirit was really strong, which made her feel more confident. Zhou Xuanji must have thanked him because of the Evil Sky Divine Range. The master of the Evil Sky Divine Range, Beast Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji replied. Upon hearing this, Nangong Jiaoyin felt as if she had been struck by lightning. How could this be? Such a big shot came in person? She instinctively looked at Zhou Xuanji. How terrifyingly talented was this brat? The Evil Sky Divine Range's Rangelord treated him so well that the Rangelord had to follow and protect him secretly even when he was out on a mission. She had never heard of such a thing before and only felt that it was absurd. Of course, she was even more surprised. With Beast Sovereign's help, they were saved. Beast Sovereign, who is this kid to you? Old Demon Soul Mover stared at Beast Sovereign and asked in a deep voice. His hoarse voice made people shudder. Beast Sovereign smiled evilly and said, "What do you think?" As soon as he finished speaking, 2 golden spears appeared beside him. They were hundreds of meters long, and gusts of strong wind surrounded them, shaking the space. "You want to capture this sovereign's person as a battle pet? Old Demon Soul Mover, if you don't lose a layer of skin today, don't even think of leaving," Beast Sovereign said in a domineering manner. 2 golden light spears suddenly shot out, creating a deafening sonic boom. In an instant, golden light shone ahead, illuminating the entire dark void. The light engulfed Old Demon Soul Mover's incomparably huge body. Roar! Old Demon Soul Mover's roar resounded, shaking Zhou Xuanji and the others so much that they felt dizzy. Soon after, they were enveloped by a warm energy, and all the discomfort instantly disappeared. Zhou Xuanji opened his eyes and found himself surrounded by a golden radiance. Nangong Jiaoyin and Xueqi stood beside him. It seemed that this place should be inside the Tao energy of Beast Sovereign. Zhou Xuanji let out a sigh of relief and took out the Holy Light Redemption Sword. He stabbed it into his abdomen and started to heal himself. Nangong Jiaoyin and Xueqi looked at him strangely. "Are you possessed?" Nangong Jiaoyin asked with a frown. Beast Sovereign has already been sold. Can Old Demon Soul Mover still bewitch Zhou Xuanji's mind? Zhou Xuanji rolled his eyes and said, "I'm healing myself." Was there such a healing method? Nangong Jiaoyin was curious but didn't ask any more questions. Xueqi looked at Zhou Xuanji with a complicated expression. Why does Zhou Xuanji have the protection of a super expert like Beast Sovereign? About an hour later, the golden light around them suddenly disappeared, and the 3 of them appeared in a starry sky. Zhou Xuanji, your mission is still ongoing. This sovereign will only help you get rid of enemies that you cannot defeat. You will still need to compete with those in the same generation as you. Beast Sovereign's voice echoed in the universe. Only his voice could be heard, but he was nowhere to be seen. Nangong Jiaoyin sighed. Let's go. Beast Sovereign saved him this time, but what about next time? She understood that in the eyes of Beast Sovereign, there was only Zhou Xuanji. For her, this mission was still a perilous one. As the 3 of them continued forward, Xueqi once again returned to his half-dead state. His eyes were lifeless. Zhou Xuanji and Nangong Jiaoyin moved forward at full speed, vigilant of their surroundings. Between Beast Sovereign and Old Demon Soul Mover, who do you think is stronger? What happened to Old Demon Soul Mover? Nangong Jiaoyin couldn't help but ask. The fear brought to her by old demon soul mover was too great, but the moment Beast Sovereign appeared, he immediately resolved the crisis, making her sigh at her own insignificance. For many creatures, Tao ancestors were high and mighty, but for some existences, they were really insignificant. Zhou Xuanji replied, Beast Sovereign must be stronger, but not by much. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken so long, and he wouldn't have left in such a hurry. He is probably injured. In the distance, the corner of Beast Sovereign's mouth twitched as he traveled through the space-time tunnel. Can't this kid leave me some face? As Zhou Xuanji had guessed, he was indeed injured. However, old demon soulmover's situation was even worse. Beast Sovereign shook his head with a smile and quickly flew toward the Kunlun Origin Court. On the other side, Zhou Xuanji's trio was also flying toward the Kunlun Origin Court. However, their strength was limited. Very soon, they were lost in the layers of universes, unable to find the way forward. Although the Kunlun Origin Court was above all universes, one couldn't reach the Kunlun Origin Court just by flying up. The rules of the universe were different. Some universes were in different directions, and some were even rotating. After 12 hours, Yijun suddenly contacted Nangong Jiaoyin and asked where they were. Nangong Jiaoyin also didn't know where she was, but she told him about their situation. Yijun sighed. We're in big trouble. We probably won't be able to escape. If you guys can't complete the mission, then forget it. Staying alive is more important. When Nangong Jiaoyin heard this, her heart sank to the bottom. Could it be that the other members of Xian Mao were trapped? That's all I have to say. We will try our best to escape. This mission is cancelled. Life and death are up to fate. Do your best to escape. Yi Jun's voice was filled with desolation. With that, he cut off the connection between the identity tokens. Zhou Xuanji and Nangong Jiaoyin fell into silence. So far, they hadn't seen anyone from the Emperor Divine range. How could they remain calm when the mission was suspended? Is the Emperor Divine range with old demon soul mover? Zhou Xuanji asked Xueqi. After all, it was impossible for old demon soul mover to pass by this place. It was too much of a coincidence. There must be another reason. Xueqi shook his head and sighed. The Emperor Divine range isn't any weaker than your Evil Sky Divine range. How much do you know about the Evil Sky Divine range? The waters of the Super God ranges are too deep. The Super God ranges might have mortal enemies, but there might also be people secretly colluding with each other. Zhou Xuanji frowned. Could there be people from the Emperor Divine range in the Evil Sky Divine range? That's right. They are mortal enemies after all. For safety, they must have sent spies to lurk among the enemy forces. Zhou Xuanji didn't speak but continued to think. He suspected that Beast Sovereign was using him as a chess piece. It wasn't just for him to gain experience. As a super genius of the Evil Sky Divine range, once he went out, he would surely attract the attention of the Emperor Divine range. Zhou Xuanji felt that this might be the reason. The three continued to move forward at full speed. After Yi Jun's communication, Nangong Jiaoyin became even more nervous. She kept her mouth shut. Although she was looking ahead, Zhou Xuanji could sense that her divine sense was sweeping around. They didn't stop after passing through space-time tunnels. Xueqi had actually fallen asleep while being carried. It looked like he was already used to hiding and being chased. In the blink of an eye, 4 days passed. They came to a barren universe. Broken soil, stones, and some dried corpses were floating everywhere. Apparently, there was a massacre here before. It wasn't the first time Zhou Xuanji saw such a scene, so he didn't feel any discomfort. However, ever since he entered this universe, he felt that something bad was going to happen. Nangong Jiaoyin had the same feeling. Even her flying speed slowed down. Finally, you are here, Zhou Xuanji. A familiar voice came from the front. Zhou Xuanji and Nangong Jiaoyin immediately stopped. They looked over and saw Ing Zhuge standing on a slanted floating mountain in the distance, calmly looking at them. Chapter 709. Zhou Xuanji looked at Ing Zhuge from afar. He wasn't moved at all. After all, before coming here, he had learned that Ing Zhuge was also participating in this mission. There was no need to guess that Ing Zhuge's mission was to suppress him. What do you want? Nangong Jiaoyin asked in a deep voice. She knew Xueqi, who had the strongest performance in this superstar competition. She and Zhou Xuanji's strength couldn't be compared to Xueqi at all. The difference was too great. Without the help of others, they were no match for Xueqi. You can leave. I only want to find him, said Xueqi calmly. From the beginning to the end, his eyes were locked on Zhou Xuanji. At the end of the superstar competition, he even told Zhou Xuanji that he was looking forward to this kid's growth. Zhou Xuanji flew toward him without any fear. Take him and hide to the side first, Zhou Xuanji said without looking back. Nangong Jiaoyin wanted to dissuade him, but the words fell on the tip of her tongue. Xueqi had already blocked them, so there was no way for them to escape. Zhou Xuanji directly used the sword fusion technique and 9-soul fusion technique, and he took out the almighty divine snake sword with his right hand. This sword required the cultivation of a mid-stage Dao-treading venerable, which was just right. The almighty divine snake sword of controlling Daos was huge, and it seemed to have been transformed from a python. Its entire body was pitch black, and it had a metallic feel to it. The tip of the sword was forked, and it looked like a snake's mouth. Xueqi glanced at his sword and quickly retracted his gaze. It was Zhou Xuanji's first time using a profound Dao-grade legendary sword. Ancient gazing, disaster releasing, universe essence, overturning heaven, connecting heaven, 9 extremities, primordial chaos, profound Dao, venerated marquee, vast sky, myriad life fusion, court overturning. The almighty divine snake sword of controlling Dao could devour the great Dao, but he didn't know if it could devour the Dao energy of the 9 vast heavens. At this moment, Zhou Xuanji's aura had already surpassed that of a Dao-treading saint. Nangong Jiaoyin's beautiful eyes widened in shock. This kid, a Dao-treading venerable, could have such an aura? Nangong Jiaoyin felt that Zhou Xuanji was not much weaker than her. No wonder you were tested to have 18-star aptitude. Fight me, I will fight you with the same level of cultivation, Xueqi said as he stared at Zhou Xuanji. He then immediately stepped into the air towards Zhou Xuanji. Boom! His aura erupted as well, and it was extremely powerful. Zhou Xuanji took the lead and clashed with Xueqi. A layer of blue light appeared like an armor, blocking the almighty Dao-controlling divine snake sword. In an instant, the myriad sky divine snake sword began to absorb Xueqi's Dao power. Xueqi raised his brow. He didn't panic. The silver armor suddenly exploded, blasting Zhou Xuanji away. Zhou Xuanji used the primordial chaos sword shadow. Billions of sword shadows flew toward Xueqi from different directions, leaving him nowhere to escape. The universe space fluctuated, stirring up waves of cold space-time winds. 81 sword souls condensed behind him. With him as the center, the tips of the swords pointed outwards, like the sword sex immortal ghost weep. This was the sword light shield art, and he used it as a sword soul. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his purple eyes flickered with a cold light. The aura of a sword emperor was fully displayed. Xueqi stepped forward. The great desolation sword shadows couldn't touch him at all. They were all offset by his Dao force as if they were nothing. Very good. Zhou Xuanji, you did not disappoint me indeed. Xueqi smiled proudly. Even when facing Chu Mochen, he had never said such words. He was very excited. Although there was still an insurmountable gap between him and Zhou Xuanji, he had already recognized Zhou Xuanji's aptitude. If this kid was in the same realm as him, what kind of strength would he show? Zhou Xuanji didn't answer. He rushed up to Xueqi as the thunderclap sword appeared in his left hand. The two swords were like the wind as he launched a violent attack on Xueqi. However, Xueqi didn't even raise his hand. He easily blocked all of his attacks. Zhou Xuanji could block his two swords with just his Dao force. Although this guy didn't use the mighty power of 9 vast heavens, the strength of his Dao force and the quality of his physical body were there. It wasn't easy for him to hurt Xueqi. Even so, he had to do his best. If he lost, Xueqi would probably take him back to the Emperor Divine range. After that, he wouldn't be greeted with friendly treatment. Zhou Xuanji used all kinds of sword Dao divine abilities. They were ever-changing. Xueqi waved his palm. This palm contained infinite fortune. Facing this palm, Zhou Xuanji only felt that colorful illusions of heaven and earth flashed before his eyes. Immediately after, he was blasted away, vomiting blood. He gritted his teeth. He felt that his body was about to explode. Damn it! Xueqi was furious. His face turned cold. The angrier he was, the calmer he became. He tried to calm his mind. In such a state, his aura faintly grew stronger. His divine abilities were boundless and boundless, blasting the universe to the point of collapsing and creating spatial cracks. Xueqi began to exert his strength. He waved his hand as if he was painting with an invisible pen. He pointed at the mountains and rivers, squandering his Tao energy. Layers of illusions of heaven and earth appeared behind him. It was the 9 vast heavens law idol. He stared at Xueqi with blazing eyes as if he was looking at his prey. Seeing that the distance between the two was getting closer and closer, Xueqi's aura was gradually suppressed. Even if the almighty divine snake sword of controlling Taoists kept devouring Xueqi's Tao energy, it didn't help. The gap between the two's Tao energy was too big. When could an ant drink the ocean? Nangong Jiayin was anxious, but she didn't know what to do. Xueqi furrowed his brow. He didn't expect Xueqi to be so powerful. His cultivation had long reached the Tao ancestor realm. But later, he offended the Emperor Divine Range, which caused his cultivation to be sealed. Even if he didn't have Tao energy, his vision was still there, as expected of an 18-star talent. Xueqi sighed with a desolate expression. He could have enjoyed the same treatment as Xueqi, but his talent awakened too late. It was only after he caused such a disaster that the Emperor Divine Range would not allow him to grow. They would only use him as a weapon. The more he thought about it, the sadder he felt. Fate was really unfair to him. Boom! Xueqi was once again sent flying. Just as he stabilized his body, Xueqi suddenly raised his hand and said, "Enough, let's stop here." Xueqi was stunned. He asked with a frown, "If you want to fight with your full strength, then do it." He thought that Xueqi was tired of playing. "I don't want to kill you, nor do I want to capture you. I just want to see your strength. Also, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't go any further." The corner of Xueqi's mouth rose as he said calmly. With that he turned around. Xueqi did not loosen his brows and continued to frown. "By the way, when you take on a mission in the future, take it personally. Don't trust the Void Boundary Palace too much, and don't trust the Evil Sky Divine Range too much. Beast Sovereign is indeed powerful, but he hasn't reached the point where he can make decisions with a single word." Xueqi left these words and quickly disappeared. The universe was still on the verge of collapse. Nangong Jiayin, carrying Xueqi, flew to his side and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Xueqi shook his head and replied, "I'm fine. He told us not to go any further. Could it be that there is already an ambush at the border of the Kunlun Origin Court? I have countless legendary swords. I have countless legendary swords." Chapter 7:10. I'm not sure, but we'll be in danger no matter where we go. Nangong Jiayin sighed, looking at Xueqi with resentment in her eyes. Ever since they had met this brat, there had been a total of 2 missions, both of which were extremely difficult, and they had been hunted down twice. Her enemies were all existences that she could not defeat, which made her feel helpless and sad. Xueqi understood the look in her eyes and was speechless. He was also wondering if he was possessed by the Star of Misfortune, or did fate do something to him back then? No matter what, the most important thing now was to think of a way to escape. If he was dead, there was no point in pursuing this matter. He discussed it with Nangong Jiayin and decided to go in another direction. They couldn't hide here. They had to move quickly. Leave him behind. Xueqi looked at Xueqi and muttered, "Consider it as giving him a way out." Nangong Jiayin nodded. She had long wanted to abandon Xueqi, but since Xueqi didn't say anything, she was too embarrassed to do so. Xueqi's eyes widened as he said, "This place is barren. Can you throw it somewhere else?" Xueqi and Nangong Jiayin directly tore space and disappeared into the turbulence of time and space, leaving Xueqi in a state of confusion. These 2 bastards. Xueqi clenched his fists tightly. His expression was extremely gloomy. Xueqi and Nangong Jiayin shuttled through the darkness. The light was getting weaker and weaker. Even their perception was weakening. What happened? Xueqi asked with a frown. He felt that they were flying in the wrong direction. Nangong Jiaoyin moved closer to him, and their arms were touching. He subconsciously shrank back, only to hear her say, "There may be an absolutely dark area ahead. Our senses and divine thoughts will be shielded, and it's easy to get lost. We'd better stay close to each other." "Don't worry, you're too young. I don't fancy you." Xueqi raised his brow. He was provoked. But now was not the time to bicker. They could not separate, or else it would be dangerous. Xueqi needed Nangong Jiaoyin's strength and experience. If he were to rely on himself, he would probably get lost in the endless universe. The two of them continued forward. After a while, Xueqi put his arm around her shoulder. Even so, he felt that his hand was gradually losing consciousness. "How could this be? You've been here before?" Xueqi asked softly. It was his first time coming to such a place, and he felt lost and uneasy. He did not know where the future lay, nor did he know what was hidden around him. The feeling of his senses being blocked was incomparably terrifying. In absolute darkness, nothing could be seen. Even the people around him were disappearing. "I'm not sure. Looks like we're in trouble." Nangong Jiaoyin sighed, her tone much softer than usual. In this desperate situation, her willpower also began to fade. Xueqi wanted to reply, but he suddenly found that his throat seemed to be blocked, and he could not speak. At this moment, endless sleepiness surged into his mind, causing his eyelids to become extremely heavy. In the end, he sighed silently in his heart. His consciousness completely fell into chaos. After an unknown period of time, Xueqi felt the warm wind blowing against him. He slowly opened his eyes and saw 10 suns hanging high in the crimson sky. Wisps of flames floated past his eyes. He sat up with difficulty and shook his head. He suddenly caught a glimpse of Nangong Jiaoyin lying next to him. Her clothes were disheveled and she was covered in scars. She looked very miserable. He looked down at his own body and found that he was also injured. He took out 2 holy light redemption swords and pierced one into his thigh and the other into Nangong Jiaoyin's abdomen. While healing himself, he observed his surroundings. They were lying in a desert with undulating sand dunes. There were only a few dead trees and no signs of living beings. "Where is this?" Xueqi furrowed his brow as he stared at the 10 suns above. He always felt that this scene was familiar. A sweet snort came from the side. Nangong Jiaoyin had woken up. She didn't panic. She was very calm. She noticed that her clothes were not covering her body. She couldn't help but glare at Xueqi before taking out a robe and wrapping it around her body. "I'm not interested in your old body," Xueqi said in a hoarse voice. Xueqi said with a hoarse voice. He still remembered that Nangong Jiaoyin had dissed him before he passed out. Nangong Jiaoyin immediately became angry when she heard this. Her throat was also very dry. She replied in a hoarse voice, "Humph, if I am willing to condescend to marry you, won't you be moved?" Xueqi stared at her with a strange look in his eyes and asked, "You don't know my current identity?" The look in his eyes seemed to be saying, "Are you worthy?" After going through life and death together in the absolute darkness region, the relationship between the two had obviously improved. In the past, they would not bicker like this. Nangong Jiaoyin looked at him bitterly, and then looked at the holy light redemption sword that had pierced her abdomen. "How many swords have you copied with my golden treasure basket?" She snorted coldly and asked. Thinking of this, she became angry. Xueqi had consumed a lot of her fate all of a sudden. She even suspected that it was because of this that she became so unlucky. Hearing her mention this, Xueqi felt that he was in the wrong and could only shut up. The two of them began to focus on recuperating from their injuries. At the same time, they were on guard against any sneak attacks. An hour later, Xueqi opened his eyes and asked, "Do you know what this place is?" His throat had returned to normal, and his complexion was much better. "I'm not sure. Let's look around." Xueqi nodded in agreement. The two immediately sheathed their swords and stood up. They didn't split up and walked forward. They didn't encounter any other living beings along the way. After walking for 7 days, they still hadn't reached the end. "Something's wrong. Is this a sealed world?" Nangong Jiayin frowned and muttered to herself. She looked a little nervous. Zhou Xuanji asked, "What do you mean?" She replied, "It means that we may be trapped here forever and can't escape. Only you and I will be left. We can't even cultivate. Didn't you notice that there is no spiritual qi or great Tao rules here?" Hearing this, Zhou Xuanji furrowed his brow. He didn't want to stay here. His family was in the Kunlun origin court. He had to go back. Thinking of this, he took out the almighty divine snake sword of controlling Daos and threw it into the sky. The legendary sword soared into the sky, trying to pierce through the sky. However, the almighty divine snake sword of controlling Daos stopped after flying to a certain height and fell weightlessly. Zhou Xuanji's brow furrowed even tighter. He didn't believe it and followed suit. When he flew to a height of 90,000 feet, the Tao energy in his body disappeared into thin air. His body fell uncontrollably. What's going on? Zhou Xuanji's eyes widened. He couldn't understand this scene. He suddenly stared at the 10 suns. He finally remembered why he felt that this scene was familiar. It was the same for the suns of the solar system. There were 3-legged golden crows inside. However, there were no 3-legged golden crows in these 10 suns. Instead, there were 10 giant babies curled up, white and chubby. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.